T-minus 10, 9, 8,
The clock is
7.
operating. We're underway.
Tranquility Base here. Endeavour, go and throttle up.
A 28-year-old internet millionaire from South Africa has fulfilled his childhood dream by becoming the world's second space tourist. The Russian Soyuz rocket carrying Mark Shuttleworth blasted off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on Thursday. Shuttleworth is accompanied by an Italian astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut. He paid nearly $20 million for the 8-day trip to the International Space Station. And as Charlene Hunter-Gault reports, residents of South Africa were excited to see their countrymen travel to space.
The preparations last minute.
In about 5 minutes' time.
The facilities makeshift. The screen small. Like this room, that's the library, and the handful of students able to crowd in. But these students were among the lucky ones. Most schools in South Africa, like most homes, don't have a television, let alone a satellite dish that would have enabled them to see the liftoff. But here, at the moment of blastoff,
it was so very exciting seeing the rocket from the troposphere to the atmosphere, and from the atmosphere to the to the space.
And the most fascinating thing it was that the South African person was there.
teaching science at Minerva High, located in one of South Africa's poorest townships, has been a challenge.
We don't have like some of the apparatus that are supposed to be used in the laboratories. We do not have some of the chemicals that you are supposed to use in the laboratories for their experiments.
But teachers have raised test scores dramatically over the past 3 years. The school's performance has earned it a place in a new national program that will provide computers with internet access and other technological resources aimed at improving math and science. Some of these students will be able to talk with Mark Shuttleworth in space and participate in programs he plans to launch on his return. No one seemed to notice or care that the first astronaut in space was white and a billionaire.
We will be motivated in our hearts and be able to see and to go and reach out for our goal.
Sharing this experience with these students here today was a very moving experience for me, taking me back to my school days in the segregated American South of the 40s and 50s, where our teachers didn't have the facilities or the resources either, but they believed that dreams propel ambition. Dreams fueled, for example, by the first astronaut in space. Charlene Hunter-Gault, CNN, Alexandra, South Africa.
And that brings us to an end of World News Europe. I'm Fionnuala Sweeney in London. World Business Today is next.
Zweiter Weltraumtourist ins All gestartet. Vor etwa einer halben Stunde hob der Südafrikaner Mark Shuttleworth vom Weltraumbahnhof Baikonur in Kasachstan ab. Die russische Soyuz-Kapsel soll ihn zur internationalen Raumstation ISS bringen. Der Multimillionär zahlt für sein 11-tägiges Abenteuer etwa 23 Millionen Euro. Monatelang hatte der 28-Jährige für seine Reise trainiert. Er will eigene wissenschaftliche Experimente in der ISS durchführen.
Urlaubsreise ins All. Der Südafrikaner Mark Shuttleworth ist vor einer halben Stunde als zweiter Weltraumtourist ins All gestartet. Die russische Soyuz-Rakete hob planmäßig vom Weltraumbahnhof Baikonur zur Raumstation ISS ab. Shuttleworth bleibt gemeinsam mit 2 Kosmonauten 11 Tage im All und hilft dort der Crew beim Experimentieren mit der Schwerelosigkeit. Für den Trip ins All bezahlt der Ex-Internetunternehmer rund 23 Millionen Euro.
Vom Raumfahrtzentrum Baikonur in Kasachstan ist der zweite Weltraumtourist ins All gestartet. Der Südafrikaner Shuttleworth ist mit 2 weiteren Besatzungsmitgliedern unterwegs zur internationalen Raumstation ISS. Mit der Reise erfüllt sich der 28-Jährige einen Kindheitstraum und zahlte dafür mehr als 22 Millionen Euro. Die Rückkehr ist für den 5. Mai geplant.
Landung bei Marschmusik auf dem Flughafen in New York. Der letzte Stopp auf dem Flug nach Paris. Die USA im Lindbergh-Fieber. Willkommensgruß für Erik. Er will in die Fußstapfen seines Großvaters Charles Lindbergh treten, der vor 75 Jahren als erster mit einem Flugzeug den Atlantik überquerte.
Den 75. Jahrestag der Atlantiküberquerung wollte ich nicht unbemerkt verstreichen lassen. Ich will etwas ganz Besonderes zu Ehren meines Großvaters veranstalten. Seine unglaubliche Leistung und sein Mut haben mein Leben geprägt.
Spirit of St. Louis, die Maschine von Charles Lindbergh. Vor 75 Jahren schrieb er mit diesem Flugzeug Geschichte. Heute steht es im Museum. Doch der Mythos ist ungebrochen und färbt auch auf den Enkel ab. Der Name Lindbergh elektrisiert noch heute die Menschen. Erik ist seinem Großvater wie aus dem Gesicht geschnitten und hat auch die Abenteuerlust von ihm geerbt.
Ich will unbedingt am eigenen Leib erfahren, was es für meinen Großvater bedeutet hat, ganz allein über den Nordatlantik zu fliegen. Ich will nachempfinden, wie er sich dabei gefühlt hat. Als ich ein kleiner Junge war, hat er mir erzählt, sein Herzschlag habe im Rhythmus des Flugmotors geschlagen. So eng sei er mit seiner Maschine verbunden gewesen. Sein Flug hat nicht nur mein Leben, sondern die ganze Welt verändert.
Charles Lindbergh vor 75 Jahren, ein jugendlicher Draufgänger, der Flugleidenschaft verfallen war. Er wollte als erster alleine über den Atlantik. Ihn lockten $25.000 Preisgeld, damals ein Vermögen. Viele hatten den Versuch schon mit ihrem Leben bezahlt. Am 20. Mai 1927 startete Lindbergh den waghalsigen Flug, kämpfte in der Luft gegen Übermüdung und Einsamkeit an. Für den Piloten eine unvorstellbare Strapaze.
Die Spirit of St. Louis hatte keine Stabilisatoren. Es war sehr schwer, mit der Maschine Kurs zu halten. Mein Großvater wollte das so. Das sollte ihn auf der langen Strecke wach halten. Es war fast unmöglich, die Maschine zu steuern. Immer wieder fing sie an zu wackeln und zu schlingern. Das heißt, Großvater musste ununterbrochen lenken. Und für mehr als 33 Stunden die Hände am Steuerknüppel lassen. Und das, nachdem er in der Nacht vor dem Abflug praktisch nicht geschlafen hatte. Wie er das geschafft hat, es ist mir unerklärlich.
Charles Lindberghs Landung in Paris, ein Triumphzug. Er war der Pionier, der die Brücke über den Atlantik schlug. Nur einige Jahre später ging bereits der erste Linienflug von New York nach Paris.
Wie einfach die technische Ausstattung damals war. Diese dicken Steuerknüppel und Schalter. Und das war 1927 der Stand der Technik. Und genau so will ich es auch machen. In meinem Flugzeug steckt die beste Technik der Welt, um das Risiko so gering wie möglich zu halten.
Und das ist der neue Wundervogel, die New Spirit of St. Louis, speziell für Erik Lindbergh und seinen Atlantikflug konstruiert. $350.000 hat die Maschine gekostet, im Cockpit modernste Technik und Kommunikationsmittel. Anders als sein Großvater wird er ständig Funkkontakt haben. Zusatztanks wurden in den Flügeln untergebracht, damit Erik der Sprit auf der 20 Stunden langen Reise nicht ausgeht. Mehrere Monate hat er selbst die Maschine getestet. Er kennt die New Spirit of St. Louis in- und auswendig. Wie sein Großvater will er mit dem Flugzeug eins sein. Die Verbundenheit zwischen Mensch und Maschine nachempfinden. Der Flug über den Atlantik, für Düsenjets mittlerweile Routine. Doch für eine einmotorige Propellermaschine ist er auch heute noch ein Risiko. Schlechtes Wetter könnte das kleine Flugzeug in gefährliche Turbulenzen stürzen. Und auch gegen die Müdigkeit muss Erik wie sein Großvater ankämpfen.
Das Schlimmste wäre, wenn ich in den Atlantik stürzen würde. Doch für eine Notlandung auf dem Wasser habe ich gründlich trainiert. Ich weiß, wie ich mich verhalten muss, um zu überleben. Ich habe zwar nicht vor, mir nasse Füße zu holen, aber ich bin auf alles vorbereitet.
Den Ernstfall probte Erik zunächst im Tauchbecken. Bei einer Wasserung müsste er lernen, das Cockpit volllaufen zu lassen. Und dann erst durch das Fenster auszusteigen. Tagelang wurde der Ernstfall simuliert, bis Erik die Überlebenstechnik im Schlaf beherrschte.
Sie haben mich kopfüber in das Becken stürzen lassen, das Cockpit mehrfach im Wasser gedreht, damit ich die Orientierung verliere. Dann musste ich mich befreien und das Fenster aufstoßen. Es war ein grauenhaftes Gefühl.
Nach dem Training im Schwimmbecken ging es aufs offene Meer. Dort übte Erik, wie er im Schlauchboot überleben kann, bis Rettung kommt. Kaum zu glauben, dass Erik noch vor 5 Jahren kaum laufen konnte. Schwere Arthritis hatte ihn viele Jahre an Krücken und Rollstuhl gefesselt. Erst ein neues Medikament half ihm, die Gelenkschmerzen zu lindern. Der lange Flug über den Atlantik stellt für Erik auch einen Triumph über seine Krankheit dar.
Ich konnte jahrelang kaum einen Fuß vor den anderen setzen. Jeder Schritt tat unglaublich weh. Selbst einfache Dinge wie mein Hemd zuzuknöpfen oder mir die Schuhe zu binden, waren für mich unmöglich.
Very basic tasks of living are difficult.
Doch der Traum vom Fliegen war stärker. Er wollte wie sein Großvater den Atlantik überqueren. Dafür nahm Erik alle Strapazen auf sich. Das Flugzeug wurde extra auf seine Bedürfnisse eingerichtet.
Ich habe einen Spezialsitz, der mir erlaubt, mich während des Fluges auszustrecken. Ich kann meine Beine auf die Konsole legen und massieren, damit sie mir nicht einschlafen. Der Sitz ist unglaublich bequem. Ohne ihn würde ich das nicht durchstehen.
Erste Etappe von San Diego nach St. Louis und dann weiter über New York nach Paris. Der Countdown läuft. Bisher klappt alles nach Plan. Nie zuvor saß Erik 20 Stunden am Steuer. Doch er ist optimistisch, schon bald in die Fußstapfen seines berühmten Großvaters zu treten. 75 Jahre nach dem historischen Flug will noch einmal ein Lindbergh alleine den Atlantik bezwingen.
Oder Afronaut, wie er auch genannt wird, hat den Flug sehr gut überstanden. Er hätte eine völlig normale Nacht im Weltraum verbracht und fühle sich sehr gut. An Bord der Raumkapsel befinden sich ja 3 Astronauten und unter ihnen, und das kritisieren manche Experten, nur einen einzigen wirklichen Profi, der Weltraumerfahrung hat, nämlich der Kommandant der Dreiercrew, Juri Gitsenko. Ein weiterer Astronaut stammt aus Italien von der ESA, Roberto Vittori. Er ist der Bordingenieur und auch zum ersten Mal im Weltraum dabei. Und es wurde natürlich schon kritisiert, dass eigentlich keiner dieser beiden in der Lage wäre, den Kommandanten im Falle eines Problems zu ersetzen. In Südafrika ist die Begeisterung über den ersten Afrikaner im All sehr, sehr groß. Präsident Thabo Mbeki wollte am heutigen Nationalfeiertag auch mit dem Raumfahrer sprechen, also wenn er auf der ISS eingetroffen sein wird. Wie gesagt, in wenigen Minuten, also etwa in 3 Minuten, soll das Undock-Manöver komplettiert sein. Ich werde einmal in den englischen Kommentar hineinhören.
Who was part of the last taxi crew that brought the Soyuz currently mated to the Pirs docking compartment of the International Space Station back in October. And seated to the right of Gitsenko is South African spaceflight participant Mark Shuttleworth, 28 years old, an internet businessman from South Africa, the first African to fly in space.
Ja, auch im Kommentar wurde gerade noch einmal der Weltraumtourist Mark Shuttleworth erwähnt. Der zweite Weltraumtourist überhaupt, der nach Dennis Tito, dem Amerikaner, in den Kosmos geflogen ist. 22 Millionen US-Dollar hat sich der erfolgreiche Internetunternehmer diesen Flug kosten lassen. Eine Summe, die die russische Raumfahrtbehörde natürlich sehr gut gebrauchen kann. 11 Tage Flug, das ist ein hoher Preis für eine Ferienreise, aber eine kosmische, die man sicherlich nicht alle Tage hat. Und damit hat sich auch Mark Shuttleworth einen Lebenstraum erfüllt. Er wollte übrigens nicht wie Dennis Tito nur das Weltall von oben betrachten, sondern er wollte sich auch durchaus nützlich machen, also Arbeitsferien gewissermaßen im All verbringen. Mark Shuttleworth wird an Bord der ISS AIDS-Experimente, also für die AIDS-Forschung, durchführen. Nun nähert sich die Soyuz-Kapsel immer mehr der ISS. Jetzt sind noch 3 Grad Seitwärtsbewegung. Jetzt wird der Kontakt gleich hergestellt werden.
Contact and capture confirmed, docking confirmed at 2:56
Das
a.m.
Andocken
Central
ist
Time.
bestätigt, es gibt einen Kontakt von Material. Man gratuliert der Crew und in der ISS und in der Sojus-Kapsel.
Yuri Gudzenko has returned to the International Space Station. Roberto Vittori of the
Yuri
European Space
Gudzenko,
Agency
der
and South
Kommandant,
African
kehrt zurück auf die internationale Raumstation, auf der er bereits einmal war.
docking following a textbook rendezvous, 2 days in flight since launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan on Thursday. Docking again occurred at 2:56 a.m. Central.
Ja, meine Damen und Herren, der Kontakt im Weltraum hat erwartungsgemäß geklappt. In wenigen Stunden, wahrscheinlich gegen Mittag, wird dann die Crew der Sojus-Kapsel in die internationale Raumstation hinüberschweben. Auch dieses werden wir Ihnen, so wir dann die Bilder aus dem Weltall bekommen, live hier bei NTV übertragen.
ISS eingetroffen. Nach dem geglückten Andockmanöver der Sojus-Kapsel an die internationale Raumstation ist der Südafrikaner Shuttleworth in die Station eingestiegen. Er und seine beiden Kollegen waren am Donnerstag vom russischen Weltraumbahnhof Baikonur gestartet. Shuttleworth wird den Astronauten bei ihrer Arbeit über die Schulter schauen.
Jetzt erreicht ISS. 2 Tage nach ihrem Start hat die russische Sojus-Kapsel an die internationale Raumstation angedockt. Zusammen mit seinen beiden Profikollegen stieg der Südafrikaner Mark Shuttleworth in die ISS um, wo die Langzeitbesatzung die Neuankömmlinge freundlich empfing. Anders als sein Vorgänger Dennis Tito will Shuttleworth hier in der Mitte nicht nur Alttourist sein, sondern selbst biologische und medizinische Experimente durchführen.
Anreise mit Zwischenübernachtung und dann herzlicher Empfang im gebuchten Quartier. Weltraumtourist Shuttleworth hat die internationale Raumstation und damit das Ziel seiner Reise erreicht. Mit dem Südafrikaner gingen die Profikosmonauten aus Russland und Italien an Bord der ISS.
2 Tage lang ist die Kapsel mit den 3 Kosmonauten schon unterwegs, bis sie endlich die richtige Position zum Andocken an die internationale Raumstation erreicht hat. Von Hand steuert der russische Bordkommandant das punktgenaue Anlegen der Soyuz 4 an die ISS. Herzlichen Glückwunsch, funkt das Kontrollzentrum an die Crew. Dann dauert es noch 1,5 Stunden, bis die Luken endlich aufgehen. Und der Russe, der Italiener und Weltraumtourist Mark Shuttleworth an Bord schweben. Freudig begrüßt von der russisch-amerikanischen Dauermannschaft. Überwältigt und strahlend posieren sie fürs erste Gruppenfoto und ein Willkommensmenü. Kartoffeln mit Schweinefleisch aus der Dose, es schmeckt besser, als es aussieht, so Shuttleworth. Wir sind gerade erst angekommen und haben die letzten 2 Tage gebraucht, um uns an die Situation im All zu gewöhnen. Jetzt beginnen wir mit unseren Experimenten und ich denke dabei an euch da unten in Südafrika, sagt er in Richtung Heimat. Im Kontrollzentrum bei Moskau verfolgt die gesamte Familie jede Bewegung. Ich bin sehr erleichtert. Das war ein gefährliches Manöver und mir war ganz flau im Magen, sagt seine Mutter. 8 Tage lang kann Weltraumtourist Nummer 2 nun aus dem Fenster schauen und forschen, ganz so, wie er es sich immer erträumt hat.
Shuttleworth and 2 fellow cosmonauts have boarded the International Space Station. The NASA crew on board the orbiting platform greeted them upon their arrival. Shuttleworth, seen here second from the right, paid $20 million to make the trip.
Today on Next at CNN, an out-of-this-world construction job comes to an end.
Enjoy these opportunities, Rex. Take some mental pictures. It's amazing.
Astronauts from the Shuttle Atlantis add a wing to the International Space Station and then head back to Earth.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Next at CNN. I'm James Hattori. This week, we're enjoying the view at San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Speaking of views, the world's second space tourist, Mark Shuttleworth, should be having a great one over the next several days. He'll be visiting the International Space Station after lifting off with a 2-man crew aboard a Russian rocket. An American space shuttle crew left the station just last week after starting the next phase of construction on the station. Miles O'Brien has more.
Launched under a veil of tight security, the Space Shuttle Atlantis returned to Earth, harboring no secrets.
It was one for the record books, the successful end to astronaut Jerry Ross's 7th mission. He is now the most frequent flyer in U.S. space history, as well as being its most avid walker. Spacewalker, that is.
I felt the same on this one as I did on the first one. Totally enthralled with the entire experience. Great crew to fly with, an incredible mission to perform.
During the mission, Ross logged his 8th and 9th spacewalks, also a new benchmark. He and his partner, Lee Morin, both grandfathers, called themselves the Silver Team. But no shuffleboard for these spacefarers. During 4 walks in all, they and another pair of astronauts attached the $790 million keystone of a football field-length truss, backbone for the space station when it is complete. While they walked, astronaut Barbara Morgan talked, working the radios in mission control. During the mission, NASA Administrator Sean O'Keefe announced the elementary school teacher, who was Krista McAuliffe's understudy for the Challenger mission, will make her own trip to the station in 2 years.
We're just thrilled to death that she was named to fly in 2004, and I know that she'll have a wonderful time and be able to take that information back to all the kids in all the schools and get them fired up where they'll go out and set high goals.
Atlantis left the planet under some unprecedented security. NASA did not release the liftoff time until the day before launch, limited live coverage of crew preparations, and shut down a huge chunk of airspace around the Cape. The space agency is clearly nervous about a mission slated for this summer. For the first time ever, a member of the crew is a citizen of Israel.
Americans weren't the only ones busy in space this week. 3, 2, 1, top. Chalk up another successful mission for the European Space Agency. An Ariane 4 rocket lifted off from Kourou in French Guiana. 20 minutes after liftoff, the rocket placed a satellite into geostationary orbit, which will enhance telecommunications service for Europe, Africa, and the Americas.
Der südafrikanische Weltraumtourist Mark Shuttleworth hat von der Raumstation ISS mit dem Präsidenten Südafrikas Mbeki telefoniert. Shuttleworth kam gestern mit der russischen Sojus-Kapsel an Bord der internationalen Raumstation und soll heute mit wissenschaftlichen Experimenten beginnen. Er ist der erste Afrikaner im All und hat in seinem Heimatland Südafrika eine wahre Raumfahrtbegeisterung ausgelöst.
The world's second space tourist is making himself comfortable aboard the International Space Station after his arrival on Saturday. In a moment, we'll be crossing live to outer space to talk to Mark Shuttleworth, the South African who spent $20 million to live his dream of going into space. But first, Caroline Wyatt, who met him before he took off, has this report.
I had moments of terror, moments of sheer upliftment and exhilaration. I have truly never seen anything as beautiful as the Earth from space, and I can't imagine anything that could surpass that.
Last Thursday morning, Mark Shuttleworth blasted off from Baikonur, heading for the stars.
As long as I can remember that I've known about spaceflight, it's been my dream to fly, and it's a great privilege after many months of training to be sitting here with this great crew.
For his parents, nerve-wracking moments as they watched their son take off. His mother Renelle comforted by his father Rick.
It was an incredible moment. I had such mixed feelings. I was so proud and I was so worried and I was miserable that he was going, and then I thought to myself that this is really his dream come true.
Then another day of tension as Mark's Soyuz spacecraft docked with the International Space Station on Saturday. Mark and his 2 crewmates floated gently through the hatch to a warm welcome from the crew on board. This whole trip is being watched closely in South Africa by none less than the President, Thabo Mbeki. He even held a live video link with Mark and asked him what the food was like up there.
Here comes here comes a little bit of lunch, and I could show you. I'll send that flying back in your general direction with love.
It's a huge relief to Mark's family to see him safe and well, but like all parents, they'll worry until he's back home.
We're going to carry a cell phone with us, and the only thing we asked was that in fact he phone us from space and speak to us.
Easier said than done in zero gravity. It's taken months of training in Moscow, learning to work in space, for Mark to achieve his dream. His 10-day trip works out at $2 million a day. The Russian space program needs the money to survive, and already others are queuing up to be next for the holiday of a lifetime.
And one of the great things that's happening, I think, is a sort of upsurge in excitement and awareness about space. I still get lots of people asking me, you know, have I been to the moon? No, just no. But that's not important. What's important is that people are excited about what space has to offer.
Caroline Wyatt, BBC News, Moscow.
Well, we'll see if he's still having fun when we establish contact with outer space, because there's an awful lot to talk to him about. We've had emails to the BBC online website, many emails and letters to us from all over the world. Of course, many from South Africa too. Just before we do establish contact, let's have a quick chat to Chris Welch. He's a lecturer in space technology at Kingston University. Chris, a good use of money?
Oh, I think so. If I had the amount of money that he has, I'd certainly want to spend it on going into space. I think it's probably worthwhile emphasising he's not just spending the money on a kind of jolly in orbit, though. He's got in place some quite substantial educational programs. He's trying to boost biological research in South Africa. So all in all, I think he's doing the right thing, yes.
That is good work, isn't it, for the space research? And also he's doing some work on AIDS, isn't he?
That's right. Some of the experiments that he's going to do up there for the researchers on the ground are connected to AIDS. They're basically sort of life science experiments being done in orbit.
All right, Chris, well, as we watch the takeoff once again, which, according to Chris's parents, Mark's parents, was the most frightening moment of all. But the one man who's experienced that is Dennis Tito. Dennis, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome, Dennis, to BBC World. You were the world's first space tourist. What will be happening to Mark now? What's the experience? How would you describe the experience?
Well, he's on the station right now, and he's getting a wonderful view of the Earth and floating with zero-G, and I'm sure he is having the most fun he's ever had in his life.
Are you envious? Well, if he is. Mark, you might be back. Dennis, are you there? Yeah, did you hear my question? I was asking, you know, looking at these pictures of Mark in space, are you envious?
I certainly have very good memories of my year, what was going on a year ago, and I'm really happy for Mark.
How long were you in space for?
I was in space for a total of 8 days and enjoyed every minute of it.
What was the best bit? What did you enjoy the most?
I enjoyed listening to opera and looking out at the Earth, taking many photographs of the Earth, which I treasure now, and also enjoyed the company of the crew and floating weightless for that period of time.
And what opera did you listen to in outer space?
I listened to various arias, Aida, Rigoletto.
So you took your personal stereo up into outer space with you, did you?
Yes, a Sony Walkman CD.
All right, well, you got the ad in there, certainly. All right, Dennis, thanks very much. We'll come back to you, because I know you have a question you want to put to Mark. And as soon as we establish contact with Mark, we'll come back to you straight away. In the studio alongside me is Chris Welch, who's an expert in space. So is there any danger attached to this, Chris?
Well, yes, certainly there's some danger attached to it. The Soyuz launch vehicle that they went up in is a very reliable launcher, but occasionally things go wrong. Obviously things can go wrong in space.
They're the live pictures. Yes, those are the live pictures. Now, look straight ahead, Chris, down there. You can see, just over there. Big grainy. What are we seeing? Oh, that's that's better. That's clearing.
Okay, we can...
Yeah, I think they're probably just turning the aerial around a bit.
Yeah, we can see somebody there in the middle. Oh, and it's breaking up a bit.
Is that Mark?
I think that probably is. It's a little bit difficult to tell on that picture.
It is. We're still trying to establish... Isn't it amazing? We can establish pictures, but sound is always the problem, whether it's outer space or on Earth sometimes. Fantastic.
This should get easier in the future.
So he's weightless all the time, obviously. How do you sleep?
They basically put themselves in small sacks. They can orientate themselves any way they want to.
Just explain a bit more, Chris. What do you mean, put themselves in small sacks?
It's a bit like it's a bit like a sleeping bag. If you imagine a sleeping bag, but you can put yourself in, but you can attach it to the wall or to the floor. The main thing is to try and keep you in one place. Otherwise, you'd float around. I guess the other interesting thing about life on the space station is that the fans have to go all the time because there's no gravity. When you breathe out carbon dioxide on the Earth, it sort of sinks down.
Thank you, Chris. Well, I think we've established contact with Mark. Mark, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Hear you loud and clear, and I just wanted to confirm what Chris was saying. It gets particularly tricky at night when you're asleep and the CO2 gathers around your head.
Well, Mark, it's a pleasure to talk to you. We've had so many questions to BBC News Online. A lot of people are saying how very proud they are to see the first African in space. So congratulations to you, have come in from all over the world, but of course from all over Africa in particular. What does it feel like to be the first African in space? Do you feel proud?
Well, I know I wasn't selected as a representative of Africa, but it's a great privilege, and I'm very proud to carry the flag of an African country to space for the first time. I believe this is the first time that a citizen of an African country has flown to space. Yes, it's an incredible feeling, especially to see Africa from space for the first time. The commander has just sent me a little present from behind the camera.
So you really have got your hand on the world there as you overlook it. Okay, so let's talk about the world of the Earth anyway. Now that you're up in space and able to look at the Earth, I'm wondering what thoughts go through your mind, and that comes from a viewer of BBC News Online, H. Kim J. of Canada.
It's an incredible experience when the fairings of the Soyuz rocket blow off. It's very, very fast. Up till that point in the launch sequence, you're in darkness because the fairings cover all the windows of the Soyuz. And then all of a sudden, instantaneously, when you're out of the atmosphere, the fairings blow off, and if you crane your neck around, you can see this incredible sight of the Earth and the very thin atmosphere that protects us from outer space. There's a tremendous mix of emotions that rushes through your head at that stage. Relief to be out of the atmosphere and safely on your way, and just sheer joy at being up there and a sense of the magnificence of the Earth.
We've had lots of emails from people who say it was unfair of you to spend such a huge amount of money on a trip to space coming from a relatively poor country. Was it necessary to spend so much money when you could have given millions who are dying of hunger in Africa? That comes from Fresher Chirwe in Zambia.
That's a very fair question and a perfectly valid observation. I think it's very important for Africa to embrace its future and to focus on its future and to create a sense of excitement for the people of Africa about their own futures. And so one of the things I hope to do by fulfilling my own dream was to do it in a way that might reach out to particularly children and learners in Africa and show them that dreams can come true. And that's a very powerful thought. The world changes far faster than we imagine it. The mere fact that I'm sitting in the Russian segment of the International Space Station, and if I move 30 meters that way, I'll be in the American segment, tells me that the world changes far faster than we imagine. So I'm very optimistic about Africa. I think that it has a great future, but to reach that future, we will have to get every African inspired and dreaming and working towards those dreams. So perhaps this project can go some way towards that.
So your message, basically, in short, is to the children of Africa, reach for the stars. What sort of scientific research are you carrying out up there?
We've got a number of experiments. The most challenging one, which is a very, very difficult experiment and very ambitious, is a stem cell and embryology experiment from South African University. We've got a glove box that we brought up on the Soyuz, and in that we have some sheep and mice stem cells and embryos. And that's the first time that those kinds of cells have flown to space. We've also got some proteins from the HIV virus crystallizing in behind panel 234, and that's being very carefully tended up here, and we hope to get some good quality crystals which will help scientists understand those proteins and perhaps design drugs to counteract the virus. And we're also doing a lot of human physiology research. I'm sort of a permanent guinea pig. I'm not doing a Austin Powers impression. The electrodes are practically implanted over here.
All right, well, you say you're doing some scientific research. I know you're doing sort of some research on AIDS as well. What sort of impact is all that likely to have in South Africa?
Well, the scientists whose proposals we accepted were very, very excited, and they've worked incredibly hard with their Russian counterparts to make those experiments fly, so to speak. The broader impact, I hope, will be an upsurge in interest and excitement about science and technology in Africa and South Africa, hopefully getting children to embrace science and mathematics at school level, creating a foundation for later life.
Now, what I'd like to do now, Mark, is bring in your predecessor, Dennis Tito. He's on the line, and he's got a question for you. First of all, let me establish that Dennis is there. Dennis, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. You have your line to our man in space, Mark Shuttleworth. Take it away.
Well, congratulations, Mark, on a great flight. Sounds like you're quite busy, a lot busier than I was. Have you had a chance to photograph the Earth? In particular, have you gotten any shots of Cape Town?
We haven't yet had a chance to see Cape Town. All of our overpasses have been at night. Hopefully in the last day or two of the flight we'll get some evening shots of Cape Town, and hopefully we'll have good weather for those. The Earth is, as you know, just magnificent, and it's been quite difficult not to get stuck every time I go past the window, because the spectacle is breathtaking. I have had a chance to take some pictures, but I doubt they'll be to your standard, so I may have to ask you for a couple of yours.
That's great. Well, thanks to Dennis Tito for taking time in the middle of the American night to talk to Mark from California. One question from an IT program, another BBC IT program called Click Online, that you may have seen, Mark. You've made your fortune out of new technologies on Earth. Have you spotted any high-tech commercial opportunities in space?
There's a fascinating mix of technology up here on station, some of it dating back to the 60s and 70s, and some of it designed in the late 90s. As a technology guy, it's really fascinating to be up here and see how that all fits together. The geek in me can't help but want to rewire the place with the latest stuff, and we'll just have to see what comes of that.
All right, we're going to move on now to some children's questions, because we've had many, many of those from all over the world to the BBC News Online. First of all, what is space food like? And that comes from London, Annie in London, who's 13.
Annie, you'd be very comfortable up here. This morning for breakfast I had strawberry yogurt and a granola bar with some orange juice. Everything that you could imagine, from steak through sushi or shrimp cocktail, is available for the astronauts up there. And we have food from both Russia, which tends to be very natural, very without many preservatives and chemicals, and then stuff from the United States, which tends to be a little more diverse. So there's a great mix, a great balance, and we've no shortage. In fact, if we could turn the camera around now, you'd see a bunch of my fellow cosmonauts munching down on a delicious meal.
And hello. One other question from a 12-year-old is, do you have to clean your teeth in space?
Yes, I had to get used to swallowing.
Okay, another one. This one from India now. How soon do you think it would be possible to go on routine flights to the moon and back? And when would it become an economical form of travel? That's from Pervin Kajotia in India.
It's great to see someone dreaming big. I think trips to the moon are a ways away, but I think we're on the verge of seeing commercial access to low Earth orbit, and that's certainly a great platform for reaching out to the planets and beyond. Hopefully that will all unfold over the next 5 to 10 years. As for an economic mode of transport from A to B, we'll have to see some radical new technologies develop, because at the moment we tend to build these very expensive rockets and then burn them up in the process. If you flew from London to New York and then burnt your 747 on the runway, tickets would be a little more expensive than they are today.
Another question now from the Netherlands. How strict are the Russians in declaring someone psychologically and physically fit to fly in space? Do you need to be superhumanly fit or just healthy?
The cosmonauts behind the camera are all doing this just to prove that they do need to be Superman. No, I think one has to have a very strong will and a burning desire to fly. And there are some medical conditions that would preclude you from a flight, but in general we've learned that the human body adapts to space relatively easily. It's adapting back to Earth after a long time in space that's more challenging. So that's where most of the research is going today.
Another one now from South Africa, Mark. What's your next dream, or have you already achieved everything you want to do?
Far from it, but the tough thing for me is figuring out which of the crazy plans I can hatch I'll do next. So once this is all over, I'll need a bit of a holiday, and then we'll see where the chips fall.
Where does a spaceman go for a holiday? There must be an anticlimax.
Mark, the question was, where does a spaceman go for a holiday? It must be an anticlimax.
I think Mark may well have lost contact with us, and indeed he has. There goes Mark. Fantastic experience. Mark Shuttleworth, the man in space. Chris Welch, he sounded as though he was having a fantastic time.
He really did, yes. He's obviously having a great time up there doing one of the things he's always wanted to do. And doing a lot of good, I think, for South Africa at the same time. I think he's probably right that people need to focus on their dreams sometimes, and particularly by achieving his success. I think while he's still sort of comparatively young, he shows what can be done.
What effect does going to outer space have on your body?
Depends how long you're up there.
Because there was that very good question about how fit you have to be psychologically and physically.
What Mark was saying about the problem being coming back is probably the case. One of the common effects is what they call chicken legs and wasp waist. When you go up there, the kind of muscles in your legs, which are on Earth are most of the time squeezing liquid up, push the liquid up out of your legs and into the top half of your body. And you get these very scrawny legs, and you get this very puffy face. Then over a period of time in orbit, your body rebalances and you lose some of that liquid. And the problem is then when you come back down again, the liquid drains back down into the bottom part of the body, and that can sometimes leave your head with not enough sort of blood. So then you start to maybe black out. But that only affects astronauts who are up there for sort of weeks at a time. The ones who are on the space station for months, they have to watch out for that sort of thing. But somebody like Mark, who's only up there for a week, the body doesn't have time to fully adjust to space, so coming back isn't a problem.
All right, Chris Welch, thanks to you. And thanks also to Mark Shuttleworth and all the team who made our interview possible. Thanks to them. We'll be back very soon.
Butterbrote, 1600 Liter Treibstoff und jede Menge Mut führte Charles Lindbergh in seinem Gepäck, als er am 20. Mai 1927 den Atlantik von New York nach Paris überquerte. Nach 33 Stunden und 5800 Kilometern war aus dem belächelten fliegenden Narr ein Held geworden. Für Lindberghs Enkel Erik, der den historischen Flug wiederholen will, ist nicht das Abenteuer die treibende Kraft. Warum mache ich das? Ist es lediglich ein Abenteuer? Nein, das ist es nicht. Ich möchte damit einfach den Flug meines Großvaters würdigen. Am 1. Mai will sich der 36-jährige Berufspilot, der 2 künstliche Kniegelenke hat, auf den Weg machen. Dann wird der Geist von St. Louis wieder unterwegs sein. Eriks Maschine ist zwar ebenso einmotorig und einsitzig wie die des Großvaters, dank modernster Technik und Navigation fliegt sie aber fast 3-mal so schnell. Während sein Großvater das Zeitalter der Transatlantikflüge einläutete, hält die Zukunft nach Eriks Auffassung ganz andere Ziele bereit. Die Technologie ist bereits da und wir werden bald in der Lage sein, ein Ticket zu kaufen und ins All zu fliegen. Die Kinder von heute werden die Raumfahrer von morgen sein. Neben der Flugleidenschaft hat Erik offenbar auch den Enthusiasmus seines Großvaters geerbt. Abenteuerlust liegt bei den Lindberghs eben in der Familie.
Auf den ersten spektakulären Bildern des frisch reparierten Weltraumteleskops Hubble ist nach Angaben der NASA der Zusammenstoß zweier Galaxien zu sehen. Die Sternsysteme seien rund 420 Millionen Lichtjahre von der Erde entfernt kollidiert, teilte die US-Raumfahrtbehörde mit. Die Bilder hatte die Crew der US-Raumfähre Columbia am 7. März mit einer speziellen Kamera aufgenommen. Astronomen bezeichneten die neuen Digitalfotos vom Weltall als die besten, die die Menschheit je gesehen hat.
Hasn't been just hanging out aboard the space station. He's been busy conducting scientific experiments, some of them geared towards creating an AIDS vaccine. The international space research community is positively buzzing over the latest information gathered by the orbiting Hubble telescope. You may remember in March when a shuttle crew replaced the main camera. Well, NASA has unveiled the first images and they are breathtaking. Anne Kellen has a look.
Behold the first snaps taken from orbit by a $75 million camera.
We had underestimated how extraordinary the images would be.
This cluster of galaxies is named for its shape, the tadpole.
420 million light years away. We see a spectacular tail of stars that stretches across the image. It's composed of stars, gas, and dust.
This one, called the Mice, shows 2 galaxies colliding and gives us a peek at what scientists expect is going to happen to our own galaxy.
Our Milky Way and our nearest large neighbor, the Andromeda Galaxy, are falling towards one another. Several billion years in the future, the Milky Way and Andromeda will likely undergo a merger like the one you're seeing at this moment. The simulation shows that the 2 galaxies will eventually merge, forming a large elliptical-like galaxy.
This is just a test drive of the camera, offering one example of what scientists hope to learn.
Maybe just yaw out a little bit to your left. Agree.
It's called the Advanced Camera for Surveys and replaces the faint object camera on board the orbiting Hubble Space Telescope. Shuttle astronauts Jim Newman and Mike Massimino made the switch in March. The new camera is designed with new lenses and updated optics for sharper, higher resolution images. These images show the collection of gases and dust where hot new stars are born, further proving how this camera can peer farther into space to capture faint objects billions of light years away. Ann Kellen, CNN, Atlanta.
And I'm Anand Naidu. I'll be back in a moment with the news headlines. Mark Shuttleworth says he hopes this trip will help inspire other South Africans to follow their dreams. Shuttleworth is believed to have paid up to $20 million for the trip into space. Earlier, he spoke with CNN from the International Space Station.
I guess the strangest part is how normal it all feels for things just to hang around when you leave them in a particular place. I thought it would be weirder than it is, but the body very quickly adapts and you get used to just leaving things there for a second or two, although they do tend to not stay exactly where you left them, and you spend a lot of time trying to track down things that you thought you had in your hand a moment ago.
Shuttleworth, an internet millionaire from the world's poorest continent, was first criticized when he announced that he was taking a trip to space. He's the second man to pay for a ride in a spaceship. 28-year-old South African millionaire Mark Shuttleworth has a few more days to spend aboard the International Space Station. He spoke to Richard Quest a short time ago.
What has been the biggest surprise for you since you've been up there? What has not been exactly as you'd expected or as you'd trained for?
I guess the strangest part is how normal it all feels for things just to hang around when you leave them in a particular place. I thought it would be weirder than it is, but the body very quickly adapts, and you get used to just leaving things there for a second or two, although they do tend to not stay exactly where you left them, and you spend a lot of time trying to track down things that you thought you had in your hand a moment ago.
You made your fortune in business. Now you're up there bouncing around. Does the real world, the markets, the business world, does it all look very trivial as you have these grander thoughts from space? How do you, if you like, how are you going to put your feet back on the ground?
I've always had my head in the clouds. It's a little strange to have my body higher than the clouds now. It's going to be interesting to see what challenges I want to take on after this. It certainly changed my perspective on life, and I'll be looking for things that are equally stimulating and equally challenging.
Weltraumteleskop Hubble hat neue spektakuläre Bilder zur Erde geschickt. Mit seiner im März installierten Digitalkamera öffne Hubble ein großes Fenster zum Universum, so die Wissenschaftler. Besonders beeindruckt waren sie von diesen Aufnahmen einer Galaxie, die 420 Millionen Lichtjahre von uns entfernt liegt. Wegen ihres langen Schwanzes aus wirbelnden Sternen trägt sie den Namen Kaulquappengalaxie.
Feeling more and more at home in orbit.
The adaptation was a lot easier than I expected. I was very concerned that it would take me many days to settle down. But after just one and a half days, I felt almost normal. And now I feel just as I do on the ground. I don't feel any strange effects other than the fact that things don't stay where you put them. The feeling in terms of what's different to what I expected is what's strange is just how normal it all feels.
Shuttleworth demonstrated the ease with which he's adapted to life in orbit with some gymnastics aboard the International Space Station. The millionaire South African is scheduled to return to Earth with his fellow cosmonauts on Sunday. Stay with CNN for continuing news. I'm Anand Naidu.
We can get plenty of work done even on station.
Das renovierte US-Weltraumteleskop Hubble hat seine ersten spektakulären Bilder geliefert. Unter anderem machte die Digitalkamera Aufnahmen einer 420 Millionen Lichtjahre entfernten Galaxie. Astronomen erhoffen sich von den Bildern neue Erkenntnisse über die Entstehung des Universums. Die 76 Millionen Dollar teure Kamera war im März von der Besatzung der Raumfähre Columbia installiert worden.
Diese spektakulären Fotos ferner Galaxien begeistern Wissenschaftler in aller Welt. Zu sehen ist unter anderem der Zusammenstoß zweier Sternensysteme, die 420 Millionen Lichtjahre von der Erde entfernt sind. Aufgenommen wurden die Bilder mit einer neuen Digitalkamera des Hubble-Weltraumteleskops. Astronomen schwärmen von den besten Aufnahmen, die sie je gesehen haben. Die Kamera öffnet ein großes neues Fenster ins Universum.
Galaxien. Das restaurierte Weltraumteleskop Hubble hat die wohl besten Bilder vom fernen Universum zur Erde geschickt, die je gemacht wurden. Besonders beeindruckend sind die Fotos einer Galaxie, die 420 Millionen Lichtjahre entfernt ist und wegen ihres langen Sternenschwanzes als Kaulquappengalaxie bezeichnet wird. Die Crew der Raumfähre Columbia hatte im März eine Digitalkamera am Teleskop installiert, die 10-mal so leistungsfähig ist wie die alte.
All. Das technisch verbesserte Weltraumteleskop Hubble hat Wissenschaftlern neue Einblicke in die Tiefe des Weltalls ermöglicht. Hubble machte diese Aufnahmen einer Galaxie, die 420 Millionen Lichtjahre von uns entfernt liegt. Wegen ihres langen Schweifes aus wirbelnden Sternen trägt sie den Namen Kaulquappengalaxie.
75 Jahre ist es jetzt her, dass Charles Lindbergh Luftfahrtgeschichte geschrieben hat. Allein überquerte er den Atlantik in einer einmotorigen Propellermaschine. Zum Jubiläum macht sein Enkel Erik es ihm nun nach, von Long Island nach Paris nonstop. Nur das Flugzeug, das ist moderner.
Das ist die neue Spirit of St. Louis, eine Hightech-Propellermaschine. Letzter Check vor dem Start heute Morgen. Erik Lindbergh will in die Fußstapfen seines berühmten Großvaters treten. Erik ist der Enkel von Charles Lindbergh, der vor 75 Jahren als erster den Atlantik überquerte. Zum Jahrestag plant der Enkel eine Wiederholung des historischen Fluges von New York nach Paris, der damals der kommerziellen Luftfahrt den Weg über den Atlantik wies. Ich will nachempfinden, wie es für meinen Großvater war, ganz allein über den Atlantik zu fliegen. Seine Leistung hat nicht nur mein Leben, sondern die ganze Welt verändert. Charles Lindbergh vor 75 Jahren, ein jugendlicher Draufgänger. Am 20. Mai 1927 startete er seinen waghalsigen Flug nach Paris. 33 Stunden brauchte Charles Lindbergh damals. Sein Enkel will in 20 Stunden in Paris eintreffen. Ich bin vor jedem Flug nervös. Ich glaube, das ist eine gute Überlebensstrategie. Selbst beim Autofahren bin ich vorsichtig. Das habe ich von meinem Großvater geerbt. Geglückter Start in New York vor einer Stunde. Die Wettervorhersagen sind gut. 75 Jahre nach dem historischen Flug will noch einmal ein Lindbergh alleine den Atlantik bezwingen.
Because I'm very interested in the future of flight.
And how do you think this could help promote that?
Well, the money above and beyond the cost of this mission will go to 3 nonprofits, the Lindbergh Foundation, the X Prize Foundation, and the Arthritis Foundation. The X Prize Foundation is really looking at opening up space to the common person, so that you and I can, in the near future, go and buy a ticket and fly into space.
All right, now on April 14th, you departed San Diego to St. Louis. You've then gone on to New York, and then, of course, as you say, you're halfway across the Atlantic. You're heading for Paris. But tell us, what sort of episodes have occurred in the flight so far?
Well, the takeoff was the first thing, and that was very interesting. It was very hot, especially since I'm wearing this immersion suit, survival suit, and so I wasn't super comfortable, and it seemed like it took a long time to take off, but the people I talked to since then on the ground said I got off the ground really quickly. So that was an interesting moment. And then I've been through 2 storm systems now, and I was able to, with the help of X Prize Mission Control in St. Louis, fly above the icing levels on the first storm and below the icing levels on the second storm. Have relatively little turbulence, so it's been really a pretty smooth ride. And I can see a half moon right now and a lot of stars. And I've also been talking to airliners up ahead that are up above me.
Sounds spectacular. Now, what's this survival suit you're talking about? I'm sure your grandfather didn't have one of these.
No, he did not. This is a Mustang survival suit, often worn by people on rescue boats or oil rigs, that sort of thing. It allows you to, it's basically a dry suit. If you go into the water, then you can survive for quite a long period of time in very frigid waters.
And just finally, what are you expecting ahead as you strive for Paris?
It looks like the weather conditions are pretty good. There may be some showers and clouds in France. However, the ceilings are VFR. That means I should be able to get below them and land visually at Le Bourget Field in Paris.
All right, Erik Lindbergh, thank you so much for joining us as you head halfway across the Atlantic for Paris. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And that Paris landing in just a couple of hours from now. Very exciting. Well, we're going to head back now to Liz and Richard in London.
It is Space Day at the Smithsonian Institute's Air and Space Museum in Washington, around the country and around the world. Taking part in the festivities, the first woman in space, former astronaut Sally Ride, who joins us now. Thanks for being with us. What is Space Day?
Well, Space Day is an international day. It's an international day that's an opportunity for kids to get involved, show their fascination with space, take part in design challenges. The theme this year is an adventure to Mars, and we've got kids from all around the world who are participating in the design challenges and just showing their level of interest in not just space, but science and math and technology.
So it's an educational project to keep kids serious about their studies?
It is. It's an educational project because, you know, kids are fascinated by space. Kids of all ages probably, but particularly kids in elementary school, middle school, high school. And we're trying to take advantage of the fact that they're really fascinated by space to keep them engaged in math and science, to show them what is out there for them if they keep up their studies in math and science, and what careers are open to them if they decide to pursue those as they get older.
The focus this year, or one of them at least, seems to be Mars. You've written a book about Mars. What's the special fascination?
Oh, Mars is just it's an exciting place. You know, people have never been beyond our moon. People have never been to another planet. And it's just a fascinating thought to envision the first human being setting foot on the red planet. Just picture Neil Armstrong's footprint, but in red dust. So I think there's a lot of fascination around the world for humanity's eventual expedition to Mars. You know, there's a lot of excitement scientifically, but there's also a lot of excitement just about the sense of exploration that brings.
I want to ask you about the excitement because, of course, you were a pioneering woman, the first woman in space nearly 20 years ago. And when we think of other space pioneers, we also think back decades. It seemed people were more excited then. Are people getting blasé about space? Is that one of the things you're trying to address?
Well, you know, I think the media is definitely getting blasé. There are space shots going all the time. There are people in the International Space Station orbiting Earth right now. But I'll guarantee you that if you go and talk to kids about space, you'll see that they're just as fascinated about the prospects of astronauts floating weightless, orbiting Earth, or studying whether there are prospects of life on Mars as they were 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So there's still that real fascination among kids growing up today with space and the space program.
What do you think these kids will have to look forward to? You're talking about them having futures involving space or professional lives involving space. What lies ahead for an 8 or even an 18-year-old girl in space exploration 10 or 15 or 20 years from now?
Well, it's a great time to be alive and to be that age and interested in the space program, because kids that age will see our exploration of Mars. Probably the first human to set foot on Mars is in that very age group that you mentioned, between 8 years old and 18 years old. And the first person who's going to set foot on Mars is alive on the planet someplace today, someplace in the world. That kid is studying science and math right now. So it's a really exciting future to look forward to.
Do you think that kid is an American? There are so many other countries. China, I guess, is the most recent that have started serious space programs. Is the field getting wider? Is it getting a little fairer for people around the world who might also like to be pioneers?
Space is an international enterprise. The International Space Station is a partnership between lots of different countries. And it's really, really important for us to appreciate that. It's not only Americans who are astronauts, it's not only Russians who are cosmonauts, but the field of space exploration is really opening up to others around the world.
Sally Ride, it's a thrill to talk to you. Thanks very much and happy Space Day.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Für Erik Lindberg ist heute ein Traum in Erfüllung gegangen. Er machte es seinem Großvater nach und flog ohne Zwischenlandung allein über den Atlantik. Am Morgen landete Erik sicher in Paris, rund 17 Stunden nach dem Start mit seiner einmotorigen Maschine in New York. An Bord modernste Navigationstechnik. Opa Charles Lindbergh hatte vor genau 75 Jahren mit 5 Butterbroten und einem Kompass das Abenteuer bestanden. Er brauchte dafür aber auch doppelt so lange.
Jahre nach dem legendären Atlantikflug von Charles Lindbergh hat sein Enkel Eric in einem Kleinflugzeug den gleichen großen Flug gewagt. Auf dem Flugplatz Le Bourget bei Paris landete er nach einem gut 17-stündigen Non-Stop-Flug unversehrt mit seiner einmotorigen Propellermaschine. Lindbergh war gestern auf Long Island gestartet. Mit dem Flug wollte der 37-Jährige die Heldentat seines Großvaters vor 75 Jahren nachahmen, der als erster Mensch die 5500 Kilometer lange Strecke über den Atlantik alleine ohne Zwischenlandung zurückgelegt hatte.
Genau 75 Jahre nach dem ersten Alleinflug des Luftfahrtpioniers Charles Lindbergh ist es seinem Enkel gelungen, in Rekordzeit über den Atlantik zu fliegen. Eric Lindbergh war gestern in New York gestartet und landete nach gut 17 Stunden auf dem Pariser Flughafen Le Bourget.
Historisch ist dieser Flug nicht, aber er weckt doch sentimentale Erinnerungen. Und obwohl diese Einpropellermaschine wesentlich moderner ist als das Original seiner Zeit, so ist auch heute noch eine Atlantiküberquerung auf diese Art ein Abenteuer. Ehrfürchtig küsste der Amerikaner nach seiner Landung französischen Boden und versuchte sich dann höflich in der Sprache seiner Gastgeber.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, guten Abend. Meine Mutter brachte mir das Wort als kleiner Junge bei. Es ist eines der wenigen französischen Worte, die ich kann. Die Mutter war nach Paris gekommen, um mitzuerleben, wie ihr Sohn den historischen Flug des Großvaters wiederholte. Charles Lindbergh gilt als Vorreiter der modernen transatlantischen Luftfahrt. Er war der Erste, dem es gelang, alleine und ohne Unterbrechung den Atlantik zu überqueren. Der Pionier musste sich vor 75 Jahren noch auf seine Berechnungen und den Kompass verlassen. Sein Enkel war diesmal zum Glück besser ausgerüstet.
I flew through 2 storms in the first 4 hours.
Ich flog in den ersten 4 Stunden durch 2 Stürme. Man funkte mir einen neuen Kurs durch und so konnte ich über den ersten hinwegfliegen. Beim zweiten bin ich so tief runter, dass ich drunter herflog. Ganz in der Tradition des Großvaters strebt auch Eric nach neuen Rekorden. Er will dem kommerziellen Weltraumtourismus auf die Beine helfen.
Ist ja auch keine große Sache mehr heutzutage, alleine von den USA aus nach Frankreich zu fliegen. Nun heißt der Pilot aber Eric Lindbergh und ist der Enkel jenes berühmten Charles Lindbergh. Sie wissen schon, der zog das Gleiche vor 75 Jahren durch. Und deswegen zeigen wir Ihnen jetzt einen Film über den Enkel und den Opa.
Charles Lindbergh hatte Träume, die wahr wurden und ihn weltberühmt machten. Alle hielten den Atem an, als er 1927 so viel riskierte. Mit der einmotorigen Spirit of St. Louis überflog er im Alleingang den Atlantik. 33 Stunden dauerte das Abenteuer. 5 Butterbrote hatte er an Bord. Essen konnte er nur ein halbes. 75 Jahre später, sein Enkel Eric Lindbergh, 37 Jahre alt, hat ebenfalls Träume. Er will eines Tages der erste Pilot im künftigen Weltalltourismus werden. Und dafür macht er heute Mittag Schlagzeilen. Er flog exakt die gleiche Strecke mit einer einmotorigen Maschine wie sein Großvater. Mit Hilfe von Navigationssystem und stärkerem Motor war er gleich doppelt so schnell. Im US-Staat New York gestartet, landete Lindbergh Jr. bereits nach 17 Stunden auf dem Pariser Flughafen Le Bourget. Die Welt soll zusammenkommen, daran möchte ich erinnern. Es ist so wichtig, gerade in diesen Zeiten daran zu denken. Wir sind so sehr von Konflikten, Kriegen und schlechten Nachrichten umgeben. Ich wollte endlich etwas Positives schaffen. In Paris angekommen, arbeitet Eric Lindbergh weiter an seinen Träumen. In Disneyland will er morgen auf der Weltraum-Achterbahn fahren. Und er ist Teilnehmer an einem Wettbewerb um die beste Konstruktion eines Raumfahrzeugs. Das Gefährt soll 3 Touristen bis zu 100 Kilometer hoch ins All katapultieren. Die Fliegerlegende Lindbergh, sie lebt weiter.
Seit heute früh kann sich der Palästinenser Yasser Arafat wieder frei auf seinem Gebiet bewegen. Die israelischen Panzer rund um sein Hauptquartier in Ramallah sind in der Nacht abgezogen und ein erschöpfter und gedemütigter Präsident tastete sich durch die Ruinen seiner näheren Umgebung und einstigen Kommandozentrale. Hell loderte sein Zorn gegen den Mann, der ihm das angetan hat, den israelischen Ministerpräsidenten Sharon. Bis zu einer Normalisierung, gar einer Versöhnung, das lassen die Bilder erahnen, ist es noch ein weiter Weg. Für Yasser Arafat wird es wohl zunächst darauf ankommen, seine Autorität im eigenen Lager wieder zu festigen und auf der Bühne der internationalen Diplomatie seine Stellung als Verhandlungspartner. Roland Strumpf über die ersten Schritte eines Palästinensers, der monatelang Gefangener seiner Feinde war.
Kaum auf den Beinen halten kann er sich mehr. 5 Wochen Hausarrest haben dem palästinensischen Präsidenten zugesetzt. Dann spricht er eine Sure aus dem Koran. Präsident Arafat an den Gräbern der Opfer der israelischen Besatzung. Und diesmal ist es keine Pose. 37 Palästinenser starben in Ramallah im Verlauf der Operation Schutzwall. Es war gegen 9:30 heute Morgen, als der Palästinenserpräsident sich zum ersten Mal wieder vor die eigene Tür wagte. Die Hand zum Siegeszeichen gereckt, doch gestützt von seinen Leibwächtern. Die Menge jubelt und skandiert. Nur wenige Stunden zuvor hatte die Welt Arafat außer sich erlebt. Man muss sich das vorstellen. Sie nehmen die Geburtskirche unter Feuer. Jetzt, während wir hier sitzen, sogar mit Raketen. Der katholische und der orthodoxe Teil unter Feuer.
Latin Church and the Orthodox Church. It's complete firing.
Die israelische Armee griff in Bethlehem an, wo sich noch immer rund 200 Palästinenser in der Geburtskirche Christi verbarrikadiert hatten. Nur kurze Zeit vorher hatte Arafat gerade Israels Bedingungen erfüllt. 6 mutmaßliche Terroristen wurden aus Ramallah in ein Gefängnis in Jericho überführt. Ausgeliefert. Am Morgen war der Zorn verraucht. Arafat frei, Ramallah ging unter im Hubkonzert. Seine Anhänger feierten ihn und die Presse jagte ihn. Nach Jenin will er als erstes und dann ins Ausland um Hilfe für den Wiederaufbau bitten und dann für seine, die palästinensische Sache werben. Doch er wird vorsichtig sein müssen. Wir geben Arafat keinerlei Garantien. Wann immer er in der Vergangenheit das Land verlassen hat, versank Israel unter einer Welle palästinensischen Terrors. Wenn Arafat Ramallah jetzt verlässt, werden wir überlegen und darüber beraten, ob wir ihn wieder zurück ins Land lassen. Zurücklassen würde Arafat nicht viel. Ein verwüstetes Hauptquartier und zerstörte Autos. Noch kurz vor seiner Freilassung hatten die israelischen Soldaten auch noch die letzten intakten Fahrzeuge Arafats demoliert. Draußen im Hof hatten seine Wächter begonnen, Barrikaden zu errichten. Es half nichts. Nun fegen sie den Hof, damit es wenigstens nicht so staubt. Die neu gewonnene Freiheit, sie ist ernüchternd. Doch noch immer ist er ein Meister der Selbstinszenierung, Reparaturarbeiten an einem beschädigten Haus für die Kameras der Welt. Ungebrochen und entschlossen will er sich seinem Volk präsentieren. Nur wozu? Ein Miteinander zwischen Israelis und Palästinensern schien noch selten weniger wahrscheinlich als im Moment. Trotz des Abzuges aus Ramallah.
Ach, wölbte sich doch immer ein klarer Himmel über Athen, dann würde der berüchtigte Abgasdunst nicht erbarmungslos an ihren Altertümern nagen. Aber an denen nagte eben nicht nur der moderne Smog, sondern auch die uralte Gier nach Griechenkunst. Zum Teil brutal aus den Blöcken gesägt, wanderten sie als Sammeltrophäen in die Welt. Wie so viele andere Kunstwerke von der Akropolis auch. Hinter den gewaltigen Säulen des auch antik anmutenden Britischen Museums in London finden sich die meisten Stücke wieder, jedermann zugänglich, kostenlos und smogfrei. Zur Orientierung ein hübsches Modell der Akropolis, dahinter ihre Skulpturen. Vor 200 Jahren hatte sie Lord Elgin hierher geschafft. Ob gekauft oder geklaut, ist bis heute umstritten. Lord Elgin war britischer Botschafter beim türkischen Sultan, der damals über die Griechen herrschte und dessen Herz wohl nicht für ihre herrliche Kunst schlug. Die Griechen wollten nunmehr die Skulpturen für die Zeit der Olympischen Spiele 2004 ausleihen, aber der Museumsdirektor windet sich. Es wäre wegen bestimmter Umstände sehr schwierig, uns die Skulpturen wieder zurückzuschicken. Ich bezweifle ja nicht für einen Moment die Aufrichtigkeit jener, die diese Leihgabe erbitten. Dennoch müssen wir sehr vorsichtig sein. Er hat wohl recht, aber mittlerweile haben sich namhafte britische Parlamentarier und Künstler für die Rückgabe ausgesprochen. Auf der Akropolis, diesem geplünderten Steinhaufen, wird hektisch renoviert. Bis 2004 will man eine riesige verkehrsfreie antike Freilichtzone schaffen. Unterhalb der Akropolis soll das Museum für die Fresken errichtet werden. Aber noch müssen auf der Baustelle Altertümer ausgegraben werden. Übrigens haben die gewitzten Griechen das Wort Leihgabe gegen Dauerleihgabe ausgetauscht. Sie haben da eine Idee.
Wir wollen, dass wenn die Briten uns auf eine Dauerleihgabe die Skulpturen zurückgeben, dann kann Griechenland Dauerleihgaben oder temporäre Ausstellungen im Britischen Museum machen mit Funden aus Griechenland, die auch hochinteressant sind. Und dadurch könnte auch eine Zusammenarbeit im europäischen und im Sinne des 21. Jahrhunderts realisieren.
Im supermodernen Museum würde diese Dauerleihgabe vor einer Glaswand stehen, durch die man auf den Parthenon-Tempel schaut. Die Athener müssen sich derweil mit zweiter Wahl in ihrer wunderschönen neuen U-Bahn abfinden. Dort kann man eine Nachbildung des 160 Meter langen Frieses bewundern. Womöglich bleibt das auch so, denn aus London ertönt bisher nur ein eiskaltes Nein.
The world's second space tourist is calling the experience extraordinary. South African Mark Shuttleworth paid Russia's space agency $20 million for the privilege to visit space and says, well, it was worth every penny. Meanwhile, Russian scientists are preparing to send a new unmanned mission to Mars next year. The so-called Mars Express will carry a variety of instruments to the Red Planet to search for water and signs of life. China is hoping to soon join Russia and the United States in sending humans into space. Beijing has already launched 3 successful unmanned space missions, plus numerous satellites. And training is now underway for a group of Chinese astronauts known as taikonauts. There are also plans for a permanent manned space station. As Han Bin of CCTV reports, China's rapidly developing space program is boosting the need for reliable space insurance.
High risk, but also high return. With the development of China's space program, its space insurance industry has also witnessed steady growth. The importance of this special risk insurance market is highly valued by investors. As one of the major providers of launching services, the China Great Wall Industry Corporation has launched 27 overseas satellites over the past decade. Most of their insurance was provided domestically.
With the advancement of the space industry, the commercialization of space technology has become common. Due to its high risk, the industry is greatly relying on insurance to protect investors' interests.
Liu Youguang said that over the next 5 years, China will launch over 30 commercial satellites. The demand for space insurance is vast. He also pointed out that the global insurance rate for space launches has increased by 50% in the past year due to the failure of many launches and the September 11th terrorist attacks. The surge will not only increase the cost, but also influence insurance services. All of the space projects in China is insured by the China Space Insurance Pool, which combines 9 major domestic insurance companies. The People's Insurance Company of China is the leader of the organization. Director Huang Lubin said that one of the advantages of the organization was the increase of the overall capacity of the domestic space insurance companies.
Although the China Space Insurance Pool has greatly increased the insurance capability, it can hardly avoid the impact of the rate surge in the global space insurance market. But by pooling the advantages of the 9 institutions, the organization can reduce the shock of the international market, greatly boost the Chinese aerospace industry.
Huang Lubin said that with China's entry into the World Trade Organization, overseas insurance companies will likely participate in domestic space insurance services. Meanwhile, Chinese space insurance companies are also eyeing the overseas market. He said that with the gradual loosening of satellite export licensing restrictions in the United States, Chinese rockets will send more overseas satellites into orbit, further boosting the development of domestic space insurance. This is Han Bin of China Central Television for CNN World Report.
fliegen. Mark Shuttleworth hat sich das Millionen kosten lassen, aber auch für eher kleines Geld darf sich jeder wie ein Raumfahrer fühlen. Wie, das zeigen wir Ihnen gleich. Weltraumtourist aus Südafrika kommt morgen zurück auf die Erde. Seine Reise ins All ein teures Vergnügen, 8 Tage für 20 Millionen Dollar. Aber der Mann hat's ja. Doch auch für erheblich weniger Geld darf jeder Astronaut spielen. Peter Hantjes.
Völlig losgelöst. Mark Shuttleworth ließ sich die Erfüllung seines Kindheitstraums Millionen kosten. Dabei lässt sich das Gefühl, wie im All zu schweben, bereits an Bord einer russischen Ilyushin erleben. Eine Weltraumreiseagentur bietet den 2-stündigen Parabelflug für rund 4.200 $ an, inklusive Spucktüten.
Also die Idee, die dahinter steckt, ist diese Raumfahrt, dieses Erlebnis Raumfahrt, der einer breiteren Masse, einer breiteren Interessentenschicht zugänglich zu machen.
Wie beispielsweise einen Shuttle-Start. Mit bis zu 8-fachem Körpergewicht werden die Astronauten in ihre Sitze gepresst, genau wie in einer MiG-29. Mit 2,5-facher Schallgeschwindigkeit steigt der Jet fast senkrecht in den Himmel. Dieses unbeschreibliche Gefühl kann jeder am eigenen Leib erfahren, der bereit ist, dafür knapp 13.000 $ auf den Tisch zu legen. Dafür gibt es aus 25 Kilometern Höhe eine unvergleichliche Aussicht auf die Erde.
Man hat hier schon die Sicht, die Krümmung der Erde, die sieht man dann schon. Also man fliegt richtig an den Rand des Weltalls.
Günstigstes Angebot für möchtegern Raumfahrer das Training in der Zentrifuge. Etwas teurer, aber dafür schon fast wie im All das Unterwassertraining an einem Modell der Mir in richtigen Raumanzügen. Schon jetzt kräftig sparen sollte, wer einmal mit dieser russisch-amerikanischen Mini-Raumfähre ins All starten will. Trotz einem Flugpreis von fast 100.000 $ sind bereits mehr als 100 Tickets vorbestellt. In 2 bis 3 Jahren soll's losgehen.
Als die 280 Passagiere am Mittwoch an Bord des Fluges United Airlines 862 gehen, stehen ihnen bange Stunden bevor. Zunächst läuft alles planmäßig, doch plötzlich gerät der Jumbo über den Pazifik in schwerste Turbulenzen. Der Pilot kehrt um, Notlandung im neuseeländischen Auckland. 5 Reisende, die nicht angeschnallt waren, sind verletzt. Plötzlich machte das Flugzeug einen Sprung, sagt dieses Mädchen. Papi, der nicht saß, ging wie ein Ballon nach oben und kam dann mit einem Schlag wieder herunter. Am Donnerstag, einen Tag später, besteigen die Passagiere eine Ersatzmaschine. Eine Maschine, die nie abheben wird. 4 Stunden steht die Boeing auf dem Flugfeld, dann kehrt sie auf ihre Parkposition zurück. Da war ein merkwürdiges Geräusch im Triebwerk und sie konnten nicht sagen, woher es kommt, sagt diese Reisende. Dann sind wir wieder raus. Also noch einmal übernachten in Auckland. Freitagmorgen, endgültiger Aufbruch Richtung San Francisco. Als die Passagiere den Jumbo besteigen, stellen sie fest, es ist der, mit dem sie 2 Tage zuvor in Turbulenzen geraten waren. Das ungute Gefühl steigert sich, als die Boeing weit über dem Pazifik dreht und wieder zurückfliegt. Sie sagten, da sei ein Leck in der Kompression. Irgendwie hat das wohl mit den Flügeln und dem Landen zu tun, sagt diese Frau. Fassungslos zurück in Auckland und ein Ende der Odyssee ist nicht in Sicht. Freitagabend dann besteigen sie den 3. Jumbo und endlich, Samstagnacht, sind sie zu Hause in San Francisco. Gesamtzeit für den Horrorflug über den Pazifik 64 Stunden und 19 Minuten.
T-minus 40 seconds and counting. And everything continues to look good for launch of our Aqua spacecraft. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds and counting. 15. 13. 12. 11. 10. 9. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have liftoff of NASA's Aqua spacecraft designed to study the Earth's water systems. And everything continues to go well.
Plus 30 seconds.
30 seconds into launch at this time.
Roger. And the solid motors have past their peak thrust, all thrusts looking symmetrical. And we passed through max Q, vehicle's still looking good, dynamics look good. And the 6 ground start motors have tailed off. And we have started the air start motors, all 3 looking good. Passing T plus 75 seconds. All 3 air start motors have reached
Coming
the
up
peak
on
thrust, and we have
motor separation, and we have the first
ground start motors.
of our boosters separated from the vehicle at this time. Everything continues to look good.
We are now passing 13 nautical miles altitude with a downrange distance of 7 nautical miles and a velocity of a little over 2,000 miles per hour. Our dogleg maneuver has been accomplished. All 3 air start motors have tapered off at this time, approaching burnout and looking symmetrical. And there's burnout and jettison. All 3 air start motors have separated, looks clean. Now we've had our LOX tank pressurization activity come in. And stage 1 guidance has come in on time. First stage system still looking good. Main engine and verniers are looking very smooth and stable. Now passing 36 nautical miles altitude with a downrange distance of 54 nautical miles and a velocity of 5,100 miles per hour. Passing T plus 190 seconds. First stage systems still looking good. We passed T plus 200 seconds. Stage systems still looking good. Passing an altitude of 46 nautical miles with a downrange distance 107 nautical miles and a velocity of over 7,200 miles per hour. The main engine and verniers continue to burn well. A nice smooth thrust there as we rocket into the thin ionosphere. Main engine now producing more than 230,000 pounds of thrust. Our next event will be a MECO coming up in a little bit less than 20 seconds from now. First stage systems continue to look well. And there's our float switch, fuel float switch, followed by LOX, and we have enabled MECO. And we have MECO. Both verniers still burning well under tank pressure. And VECO, both verniers cut off. And 1-2 steps, stages have separated. And the second stage is ignited. Chamber pressure looking good.
And when you are ready to...
Good evening from the Johnson Space Center in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where this evening a team of U.S. flight controllers will be working in concert with their Russian counterparts at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov, outside of Moscow, half a world away, overseeing the undocking and departure of the Soyuz 4 taxi crew, which has been on board the International Space Station for almost 8 days now. Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at this hour, Flight Director Annette Hasbrook on the right side of your screen, joined on her right on the left side of your screen by spacecraft communicator Mark Polanski, who will be talking when required this evening to the Expedition 4 crew on board the International Space Station. 41 years ago today, Alan Shepard rode a Mercury Redstone rocket to a 15-minute suborbital flight 115 miles downrange from Cape Canaveral, Florida, as the first American to fly in space. Today, 41 years later, American flight engineers Dan Bursch and Carl Walls completed 150 days in space since their launch aboard the shuttle Endeavour back in December. They, along with their Russian commander, Expedition 4 Commander Yuri Anufrienko, in the middle of your screen, in the home stretch of 6 months in space, they will be replaced in early June by another resident crew, the Expedition 5 crew, also to be launched aboard the shuttle Endeavour on the STS-111 mission. It all started back on April 25th with a launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan for the Soyuz taxi commander Yuri Gidzenko, a lieutenant colonel in the Russian Air Force. In the middle of your picture in this crew portrait taken pre-launch, the 40-year-old Gidzenko is wrapping up his third flight into space, 330 days in space, aggregate total. The first former resident of the International Space Station to return to the orbital outpost. He was a member of the Expedition 1 crew that was launched back on October 31st, 2000, along with Bill Shepard, the Expedition 1 commander, and flight engineer Sergei Krikalev. Gidzenko returning to the International Space Station a week ago today with his two taxi crew colleagues. On the right side of your screen, Roberto Vittori from the European Space Agency, flying under a commercial contract to the International Space Station between the Italian Space Agency and the Russian Aviation and Space Agency. And on the left side of your screen, 28-year-old Mark Shuttleworth, the South African internet entrepreneur who also flew under a contract between himself, the government of South Africa, and the Russian Aviation and Space Agency for his opportunity to fly in space and conduct educational and scientific activities during his 8 days on board the international complex.
Shirt sleeve, glove connector. No, we are wearing camellias. Copy.
This was the scene 1 week ago today, early Saturday morning, April 27th, 2 days after the launch of the Soyuz TM-34 craft, the brand new Soyuz return vehicle to the International Space Station, as Commander Yuri Gidzenko aligned the Soyuz docking mechanism with the docking port on the nadir side of the Zarya control module of the International Space Station. The older of the two Soyuzes at the International Outpost, the Soyuz TM-33 craft, was relocated 2 weeks ago today from the Zarya nadir docking port to the Pirs docking compartment. That is the vehicle within which Gidzenko, Vittori, and Shuttleworth will ride home tonight to a landing on the steppes of Kazakhstan. Again, you're looking at video from the arrival of the taxi crew 1 week ago. This shows the new Soyuz TM-34 craft docking and then being captured by the docking mechanism on that docking port of Zarya to the International Space Station. You see the capture and rotation of the Soyuz. Again, this occurred in the wee hours of Saturday morning, April 27th, 1 week ago today. The older of the two Soyuzes you saw at the top of your screen at the Pirs docking compartment. About an hour and a half after that docking a week ago, the hatches were opened between the Soyuz and the International Space Station, and Yuri Anufrienko, the Expedition 4 commander, greeted his Russian counterpart, Soyuz taxi commander Yuri Gidzenko, who floated, you see him now in the field of view. He was joined, of course, by Roberto Vittori and Mark Shuttleworth for 8 days on board the International Space Station. You see Vittori coming into the field of view, and you'll see Mark Shuttleworth just a moment from now, who will appear in the field of view again this 1 week ago today, back on April 27th, after the arrival of the taxi crew on board the International Space Station. And Mark Shuttleworth being greeted 1 week ago today by Carl Walls, one of the two American flight engineers on board the International Complex.
We're at LOS.
Earlier this afternoon, in the Unity module of the International Space Station, there was a brief ceremony in which the taxi crew, Gitzenko, Shuttleworth, and Vittori, were greeted by the Expedition 4 commander, Yuri Anufrienko, as they went through a traditional ceremony in which they signed the so-called ship's log to record the fact that they have been on board the International Space Station. You see Vittori on the right side of your screen near the bulkhead of the Unity module, and you see all the mission stickers that are affixed to that bulkhead. This has become a traditional ceremony since the Expedition 1 crew boarded the station. For all residents on board the station, all shuttle assembly flights, and all taxi crew flights to affix stickers to that bulkhead. Again, this occurred just a few hours ago before the taxi crew made its way into the Soyuz vehicle.
Photograph and basically told a little bit about what they did and thanked some of the people, including us, who
you will see the crew shortly affix its mission sticker. They go under the call sign of Urans. That is a call sign that is the call sign selected by the commander of an arriving Soyuz vehicle at the International Space Station in the Russian tradition of Soyuz commanders.
Up on the, and it's actually on the port side, right to the left of Roberto.
Each of the three crew members signing the International Space Station ship's log, Vittori, who is trained as a mission specialist as part of the European Space Agency astronaut cadre here at the Johnson Space Center, again flying for the European Space Agency and the Italian Space Agency on board the station. And now Shuttleworth affixes his name to the ship's log, handing it back to Yuri Anufrienko, and Gitzenko displaying the fact that the Soyuz 4 taxi crew officially logged in near the end of their 8 days on board the International Space Station. And with that, Gitzenko now has the honors of affixing the sticker in this traditional ceremony that began 2 years ago once the Expedition 1 crew arrived on orbit, to officially record the fact that their flight has been a part of International Space Station assembly and ongoing maintenance activities.
Here, very short time, but they worked very hard.
With that, the two Russian commanders had an opportunity to shake hands and embrace one final time. Anufrienko, a veteran of 2 flights, Gitzenko again wrapping up his 3rd flight into space with this evening's undocking, which is upcoming about an hour and 19 minutes from now.
Some pins and patches.
Carl Walls, one of the 2 American flight engineers, now offering his farewells to the taxi crew, and Dan Birch as well. And again, that traditional sticker and ship's log ceremony occurred several hours ago, prior to the time that the taxi crew made its way into the Soyuz vehicle to suit up into their Russian launch and entry suits and to conduct final leak checks prior to this evening's undocking. Again, this taxi crew of Gitzenko in the middle, Vittori on the right, Shuttleworth on the left, will be undocking at 7:28 p.m. Central Time this evening, about an hour and 18 minutes from now. Landing on the steppes of Kazakhstan is expected at about 10:52 p.m. Central Time, which will be 9:52 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning. This video was downlinked by the crew on board the International Space Station, the Expedition 4 crew, about an hour and a half or so ago. This is a view that looks inside the Pirs docking compartment, which was launched to the International Space Station last September. It serves as both a docking port for arriving Russian Soyuz vehicles, as well as an airlock from which Russian staged spacewalks are conducted. There have been several spacewalks conducted from the Pirs docking compartment, so it serves a dual purpose. It is affixed to the nadir or earthward-facing docking port of the Zvezda service module. So this view, again, looking from Zvezda into Pirs, into the hatch of the Soyuz vehicle, as the Soyuz taxi crew conducted final transfer activity before closing the hatches between Soyuz and the International Space Station. Again, this is a videotape replay, a video that was downlinked about an hour and a half or so ago, showing a final transfer activity. You're looking into the Pirs docking compartment, and at the very back of Pirs is the open hatch to the Soyuz vehicle, which has since been closed. Here you see Yuri Gudzenko with a few final items being transferred from the Soyuz back into the station, no longer needed. That will be part of the refuse that will be stored on board the Leonardo multipurpose logistics module once it arrives aboard the shuttle Endeavour on the STS-111 mission, which is targeted for launch in less than 4 weeks on May 30th.
Как принял, Юр? Как принял, Юр? Да, я вас понял. Удаляем ПО. Так я понял. Главбокс удаляем ПО, инкубатор и раздавленные капсулы, которые из него не вынимаются, оставляем на станции. Да, оставляем на станции. Он уже потащил бытовой отсек. Инкубатор? Инкубатор ты имеешь в виду? Инкубатор ты имеешь в виду? Инкубатор я имею в виду. Юр, инкубатор остается на станции, мне тут подсказывают. Если там раздавленные капсулы, которые нельзя из него извлечь, то тогда оставляем на станции вместе с капсулами. Тогда оставляем на станции вместе с капсулами. Ну тогда стоило затевать весь этот разговор двухчасовой. Нет, ну мне так передали, что главбокс с раздавленными капсулами, поэтому его удаляем. Поэтому его удаляем.
Again, that was a videotape replay of activity in the Pirs docking compartment, to which the Soyuz TM-33 craft is mated for the next hour and 13 minutes. The Soyuz taxi crew now inside the Soyuz vehicle. This is a live downlink picture now of the Soyuz TM-33 craft inside the descent module. Strapped in their seats are Commander Yuri Gudzenko, Flight Engineer Roberto Vittori of the European Space Agency, and South African spaceflight participant Mark Shuttleworth. The Pirs docking compartment, which you see more or less mated to the Zvezda service module in the middle of your screen, was delivered to the International Space Station back in September of last year, serving both as a docking port for arriving Soyuz vehicles as well as an airlock from which Russian stage spacewalks are conducted. Again, the Soyuz vehicle that you're looking at is the TM-33 craft, the older of the two Soyuzes currently at the station. Inside, Gudzenko, Vittori, and Shuttleworth ready to undock 1 hour and 12 minutes from now at 7:28 p.m. Central Time this evening. Once the undocking occurs, the commander, Yuri Gudzenko, will fire jet thrusters on the Soyuz to begin a separation maneuver. That first separation burn is about 15 seconds in duration to create an opening rate of about half a meter per second. That will enable the Soyuz to be well away from the International Space Station at the time that a computer-commanded deorbit burn is initiated at about 9:57 p.m. Central Time tonight. That will be a 4-minute deorbit burn to slow the Soyuz vehicle down, enabling it to be recaptured by Earth's gravity and to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. The Soyuz vehicle and its 3 taxi crew members will sense the first traces of Earth's atmosphere at the point of entry interface at 10:28 p.m. Central Time this evening. The computer command to open up the parachute will be given at about 10:37 p.m. Central Time this evening, and landing on the steppes of Kazakhstan expected at 10:52 this evening Central Time, which is 9:52 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning. There will be 5 Russian military planes, 9 helicopters, and 5 cross-country rescue vehicles that will be on hand to extract the 3 taxi crew members out of their Soyuz capsule. They then will be flown by military transport plane back to the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City outside of Moscow for initial medical tests and for the beginning of their debriefing and rest periods that typically follow Soyuz crew landings. This was the view at about 4:20 this evening, about 2 hours ago, through Russian ground station television, showing Expedition 4 Commander Yuri Anufrienko and his Russian taxi crew counterpart Yuri Gitzenko. This was after the ship's log ceremony in the Unity module. They made their way back into the Zvezda service module. You see a battery of laptop computers that are mounted right behind Anufrienko. You're looking in back of Anufrienko is the hatchway that leads to the Zarya control module. This, again, through Russian ground station television, showed the final farewells between the 2 crews as they said goodbye for the final time before the taxi crew actually made its way into the Soyuz vehicle itself. Again, this is a videotape replay from about 2 hours ago of the final moments of the 2 crews together in the Zvezda service module. You will see a short time from now the crew gathered together to say farewell to one another before the taxi crew again made its way from Zvezda into Zarya and made final preparations for their ingress into the Pirs docking compartment and into the Soyuz TM-33 craft that they will undock from the station just over an hour from now to begin their descent back to Earth. The vehicle that the taxi crew Gitzenko, Vittoria, and Shuttleworth are riding home in this evening was first delivered to the International Space Station back in October when the Russian commander Viktor Afanasyev, his flight engineer Konstantin Kozeyev, and European Space Agency flight engineer Claudie Hanier brought the TM-33 craft to the station. Soyuz vehicles are rotated back and forth from the station about every 6 months to ensure that a fresh Soyuz vehicle is attached to the International Space Station as a lifeboat, basically a rescue vehicle that the crews, the resident crews on board the station would ride home in the unlikely event that a problem would occur that would cause them to leave the station prematurely. There you see Mark Shuttleworth in his final hours of his 10 days in space. Again, the taxi crew was launched from Baikonur in Kazakhstan, the Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, back on April 25th. Docked to the International Space Station in the early morning hours a week ago on Saturday, April 27th, and we are now just about an hour away from undocking, and the taxi crew is now about 4.5 hours away from landing on the steppes of Kazakhstan to wrap up their 10-day flight.
Значит, мы сейчас видим центральный пост. Картинка черно-белая пока. И видим тебя.
Хорошо, я уже здесь. Сейчас мы все будем здесь, буквально. Закрытие люков готово, Игорь Иванович, передайте. Забрали сюда главбок, забрали сюда перчатку. Скафандры уже в бытовом отсеке. Экипаж пока по эту сторону люка. Ну, готовы уйти туда. Прямо сейчас.
Принято.
Сейчас еще одна упаковочка. Как цвет пошел уже?
Нет, пока нет. Помехи идут небольшие.
Хорошо.
Цвет пошел.
Отлично, экипаж пришел.
And again, you see here the Soyuz taxi crew, Roberto Vittori and Mark Shuttleworth in front, Yuri Gitzenko with the headset on, Yuri Anufrienko, the Expedition 4 commander, and Carl Walls about to float into the field of view as the two crews said farewell to one another. Dan Bursch was operating the camera here at the time. Gitzenko, in this brief farewell ceremony, offered his thanks to the flight control teams both in Moscow and here in Houston for all of their help and cooperation over the past 8 days that the taxi crew has been on board. Opportunity for final hugs and handshakes, and with that, the taxi crew then made its way down into the Piers docking compartment and into the Soyuz to begin to suit up in their Russian launch and entry suits for final leak checks and preparations for undocking, which is now 1 hour away at 7:28 p.m. Central Time this evening. And again, the camera followed the taxi crew down into the Piers docking compartment and into the Soyuz vehicle, where they then began final preparations for this evening's undocking. This is a good close-up view of the docking interface between the Soyuz vehicle, the orbital module portion, the very top bulbous portion of the Soyuz vehicle mated to the Piers docking compartment. It has been a very busy day in space. The European Space Agency successfully launching an Ariane 4 rocket late last night to place a satellite into orbit This morning at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, NASA launching a Delta II rocket to place an oceanic environmental satellite called Aqua into orbit. And now this evening, the departure of the Soyuz taxi crew from the International Space Station. Again, you're looking at a live downlink picture from one of the elbow camera views on the Canadarm2, the space station robotic arm, showing the docking interface between the top of the Soyuz TM-33 craft, the orbital module section of the Soyuz craft, in which the taxi crew, Yuri Gidzenko, Roberto Vittori of the European Space Agency, and South African businessman Mark Shuttleworth are currently seated in their launch and entry suits, their Russian suits, ready for undocking 49 minutes from now. Years ago, this was the scene looking into the Pirs docking compartment from the Zvezda service module as the taxi crew made its way inside the Soyuz vehicle for the final time. Again, you see Roberto Vittori with a final handshake, the crew making its way into Pirs and then eventually into the Soyuz, and you'll be watching a variety of equipment being handed over to the taxi crew of Gidzenko, Vittori, and Mark Shuttleworth before the hatches were actually closed between Pirs and the Soyuz vehicle. Again, this is a videotape replay of activities that occurred 2 hours ago at about 5 p.m. Central Time this afternoon. You can see Expedition 4 Commander Yuri Anufrienko removing a ventilation hose in the Pirs. Yuri Gidzenko in the background as he gathers final equipment, making his way into the Soyuz vehicle, and you'll be seeing Anufrienko close that conical hatch between Pirs and the Soyuz just a moment from now. Again, this is a videotape replay of the final hatch closure between the International Space Station's Pirs docking compartment and the Soyuz vehicle, which occurred 2 hours ago.
Тут какая-то помеха идет, но тем не менее, вот мы проверяем уже больше 20 минут, значит, герметичность при сброшенном давлении переходных люков. Давление стоит, не шевелится. Значит, ВСУ практически 0, порядка 10 миллиметров не изменяется, и ВСА ФБО по 760 миллиметров. Принято. Принято. Когда мы открываем люк, переходим на давай всех. Давайте. Давайте.
And with that, the hatch was closed for the final time between the Pirs docking compartment and the Soyuz TM-33 craft, again, that occurring a little over 2 hours ago. We're now less than 24 minutes away from the undocking of the Soyuz taxi crew from the International Space Station. That will be occurring over Central Asia within range of Russian ground stations. The International Space Station is currently passing over the southeastern coast of the continent of Africa, moving from southwest to northeast, soon to cross the equator. Everything continuing to go very smoothly. Again, the undocking will be followed by a separation maneuver, the firing of the Soyuz jet thrusters to begin an opening rate as the Soyuz phases away from the International Space Station to set the stage for the actual deorbit burn, a 4-minute firing of the Soyuz engines to slow down its orbital velocity, enabling it to drop out of orbit for its descent back to Earth, landing on the steppes of Kazakhstan, scheduled at 10:52 p.m. Central Time this evening, 9:52 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Sunday morning.
Leak check. It is pressurized. The pressure is about 830, and the orbital module, it is about 730. Well, it increased about 5 millimeters. Copy. 780. Well, congratulations on the Easter. Same to you. 2 minutes.
Two and a half minutes away now from the undocking of the Soyuz TM-33 craft from the Pirs docking compartment of the International Space Station.
1 minute left. Affirmative. -1 till undocking. Copy. We're receiving telemetry. And we're receiving a picture. Where from? We can see format 44.
You're now looking at a live television picture from the external TV camera, the black and white engineering overlaid camera on the Soyuz TM-33 craft as we stand by for undocking.
Yes, we have the hooks are opened.
The hooks are now open on the Soyuz side of the Soyuz Pirs docking interface.
Who runs? I'm 19-1. You have a goat for undocking. Copy. 34-31.
Final approval given for the undocking of the Soyuz TM-33 craft by Russian flight controllers.
VS 10 minutes, 10 seconds left. 328, the command has been issued, the hooks are closed. The transfer hatch is closed, copy. And on our request, please issue command R8. Will do, for sure.
Standing by for the springs on both sides of the docking interface to push off against one another and the physical separation of the Soyuz from the International Space Station.
Yes, you will will take a look, will inspect the docking ring. And the time chronometer will be on when I see the mode. We know all that. Good, thank you.
Undocking confirmed.
It has been
at 7:31 p.m. Central Time over China.
The best of luck. Good luck to you.
Yuri Gudzenko, Roberto Vittori, Mark Shuttleworth now moving away from the Piers docking compartment after 8 days on board the International Space Station.
Mark, Roberto, Yuri, the best of luck to you. Arrivederci. And thank you. See you. The best of luck. The hooks are open. The indicator mode. Copy. Yes, so 1 and 2, we got them. Issue radio on A. In work. 8. Overcar closed.
The Soyuz TM-33 craft continues to back away. We should be getting a 15-second burst of the jet thrusters and the separation maneuver a short time from now. Undocking again occurred at 7:31 p.m. Central Time over China at an altitude of 243 statute miles.
Thruster.
Again, this is a live view from the external black and white engineering camera on the outside of the Soyuz vehicle as it continues to back away from the Piers docking compartment of the international complex. We should have this television picture for about another 9 minutes or so.
Yuri, we're watching you. Everything is okay. Nominal. We have the elimination. The elimination is off.
This wide field view shows the service module, the Zvezda service module, and the associated Piers docking compartment at the very top of your picture. The Zarya module and the other Soyuz, the new Soyuz that was delivered to the station by the taxi crew a week ago today. And at the bottom of your picture, the large P6 U.S. solar arrays, and the U.S. segment of the International Space Station with the Canadarm2 in the crooked position, the basic viewing position to record external elbow camera views of the Soyuz departure.
Copy, understood.
Понятно.
The International Space Station and the Soyuz TM-33 craft with the taxi crew on board passing over the northwestern Pacific Ocean right now.
Should it? It's still now?
Отключаем тогда телевидение.
Okay, we deactivate TV now. Video. Yes, you will have to activate the Charker system now.
ЗРПФ выдавать. СССР включать.
SSSP deactivate. Yes, just a sec. Yes, you have a go to deactivate it. Okay, we're in process with R8 in work. Inhibitor in place.
Не надо.
This now a live television picture of the Soyuz TM-33 craft some 30 minutes after its undocking from the International Space Station. This view being taken out of the window, one of the windows in the International Space Station. The Soyuz TM-33 craft now several hundred meters away from the station. Again, this is a live television picture being taken out of one of the windows on the station by the Expedition 4 crew.
Okay, here it comes.
This now a videotape replay of the undocking of the Soyuz TM-33 craft, which occurred at 7:31 p.m. Central Time this evening over China. You can see the Soyuz beginning to back away from the Pirs docking compartment. This a very good view as you see the forward docking cone and the capture mechanism on the Soyuz as it backs away from the piers. The docking compartment, of course, is attached to the nadir docking port of the Zvezda service module. The bulbous compartment to which the docking mechanism is affixed is the orbital module portion of the Soyuz. The middle portion, the dark portion in the middle around near the position of the solar arrays is the descent module. That's where the three crew members, Yuri Gudzenko, Roberto Vittori, and Mark Shuttleworth, are seated, strapped into their contoured Soyuz seatliner couches. And the white portion at the very rear of the Soyuz, to which the solar panels are actually affixed, is the instrumentation and propulsion module, which contains all of the propulsion tanks and avionics for the Soyuz. Again, this is a videotape replay shot by flight engineer Dan Bursch on board the International Space Station, showing the Soyuz undocking, which occurred at 7:31 this evening Central Time.
Yeah, we're just checking. Looks like they got both seals with them. And soon here you should be able to see their first set burn. The actual undocking was about a minute earlier than what I thought it would be when the hooks finally opened. We could feel kind of a little clunk on board. Sorry, I can't think of a more technical word. There you see a first set burn.
We're getting great pictures of all this, Dan, and clunk sounds like a good technical term.
Okay. About as technical as I can get at 1 in the morning.
That was a reaction down here.
Here was a picture out of the docking compartment, and that's how it, as it slips behind our Soyuz. This is looking out another window as it passed over the solar arrays over top of station.
Flight engineer Dan Bursch providing the narration as he provides a variety of videotape replay views of the undocking of the Soyuz TM-33 craft and the Soyuz taxi crew of Gudzenko, Vittori, and Shuttleworth. The undocking occurring about 43 minutes ago at 7:31 p.m. Central Time over China. The taxi crew has begun a fairly brisk separation rate from the International Space Station. Their big deorbit burn, a 4-minute firing of their braking rockets to enable them to slow down and re-enter Earth's atmosphere, scheduled at 9:57 p.m. Central Time this evening, a little over an hour and a half from now, with a landing on the steppes of Kazakhstan scheduled at 10:52 p.m. Central Time.
that's it from this tape.
We copy that, Dan. We appreciate the view. It was a great job on the camera work there.
Thanks. Looks like Elvis has one here, too.
Okay, we copy that, and just to let you know, everybody here, and including PAO, is very happy with what we got to see tonight.
Oh, good.
And this will be just a quick one. This is out of the Soyuz window, and sorry I couldn't get it better. The camera was sort of jammed into the corner of the, this is the board engineer, the left seat window, and you'll see the undocking here in just a couple of seconds.
Carl Wall's now providing one final view of a videotape replay of the undocking. This was taken out of the new Soyuz TM-34 craft. There's the undocking of the taxi crew from the Piers docking compartment. This again taken out of a window in the new Soyuz TM-34 craft, which is docked as the return and rescue vehicle for the residents on board the station to the nadir docking port of the Zarya module.
And I was in the lab. I didn't hear the clunking noise. It was kind of like more of a clinking noise. And that's about it for this tape, Roman.
We copy that. Thanks a lot, Carl. We thought there were some magnificent shots there, and it was nice to see the Earth in the background. And we'll note that it was clinking for you and clunking for Dan.
Our correspondent Caroline Wyatts in Moscow. She says Mark Shuttleworth's trip was a great success. He worked hard and was fully accepted as a member of the International Space Station crew.
I think he had the holiday of a lifetime, or rather the trip of a lifetime, because he does sound as though he's been working pretty hard for most of the day on those scientific experiments up in space, as well as talking to a lot of people down on Earth. He's been doing live video link-ups with South African school children. He even received a proposal of marriage while up in space from one of them, and talking to the South African president, and just generally having a whale of a time by the looks of it, being allowed to float anywhere he wanted to on the space station. I think being fully accepted as a member of the crew up there, much less a space tourist this time.
You could say this is reconnecting space travel with the popular imagination in a way it hasn't done for a long time. The Russians were criticized for taking tourists into space. Would it be fair to say they've proved those critics completely wrong now?
I think they've certainly won over the Americans to the idea, because initially when Dennis Tito went up about a year ago, there was strong opposition from NASA, who was saying that if they took someone unqualified on board, they could break things. They might touch things and buttons they weren't supposed to on the space station. So Dennis Tito himself wasn't allowed out of the Russian living space, the Zvezda capsule up there. But Mark Shuttleworth has had free reign. The Americans seem to have come round to it, and I think possibly because they themselves are quite keen to send up teachers, people like that, up onto the International Space Station themselves, so they can't really stop the Russians doing it. And the Russians desperately need that money from Mark Shuttleworth, from Dennis Tito, and all the people who are waiting in a long line to be the next up in order to keep the Russian space program going.
So without the money paid by these, let's face it, extremely wealthy tourists, would the missions have got off the ground?
It would have been much harder to finance them. Mark Shuttleworth's $20 million or so that we believe he's paid for the trip will finance a Soyuz trip up there and more. That's enabled Russian cosmonauts to gain their own experience on the International Space Station, and it allows the Russians, who have a very, very good record on space, to carry on developing that, to carry on making modifications that will help all the countries, the 16 nations involved in the International Space Station. So yes, without that money it would be a lot harder for Russia to do any of that.
Caroline Wyatt talking to me there from Moscow. You're watching BBC.
Space tourist said as he emerged from a Russian space capsule on Sunday. South African businessman Mark Shuttleworth shelled out $20 million for a trip to the International Space Station. Moscow Bureau Chief Jill Doherty paid considerably less to get to a remote area of Kazakhstan Sunday when the high-flying millionaire returned to Earth.
The Soyuz capsule touched down just as planned in the middle of a field in the steppes of Kazakhstan, with 3 cosmonauts looking good as they emerged from that capsule. The capsule was blackened by the re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Mark Shuttleworth, the 3rd one to come out, doctors checked him. He was looking good. They took his pulse, and they were then taken to a tent where doctors will be checking them. The first thing they have to do is get their land legs. After all, after 10 days in space, 10 days of weightlessness, they have to get used to gravity again, and that will take some time. They will be in quarantine for another few days. Jill Doherty, CNN, reporting from the steppes of Kazakhstan.
Looks fine, but a little chilly there in Kazakhstan. Let's see what it's like in your part of the world.
Huge stresses. The capsule itself is travelling at something like 10 times the speed of sound. It's going through temperatures of 10,000 degrees centigrade, and then you come back down to Earth with a bump, and you can see they have to be helped off because they're simply not used to the weight of their bodies and to carrying that. So the first few days they'll have to take very gently indeed, but the doctors who've seen them have pronounced all the cosmonauts, Mark included, to be in good condition, but clearly they'll have to go through another few days of tests in Moscow before they get back to normal again.
Eines Weltraumabenteuers. Nach 10 Tagen an Bord der internationalen Raumstation ISS ist der südafrikanische Weltraumtourist Shuttleworth zur Erde zurückgekehrt. Vor 3 Stunden landete die Soyuz-Kapsel in der kasachischen Steppe. Shuttleworth war nach dem US-Geschäftsmann Tito der 2. Tourist an Bord der ISS. Er soll dafür rund 22 Millionen Euro gezahlt haben. Inzwischen gibt es eine Warteliste von finanzkräftigen Amateurastronauten, die eine Fahrkarte ins All kaufen möchten.
Space tourist, the South African multimillionaire Mark Shuttleworth has landed safely in Kazakhstan after 10 days in orbit. Safely back on Earth, Mr. Shuttleworth described his journey as the best thing he'd ever done. It cost him $20 million. He spent 8 days docked at the International Space Station, where he helped conduct medical experiments. It's emerged he's buying the Soyuz space capsule that took him back to Earth, as well as his spacesuit, as mementos of the trip. Our correspondent Caroline Wyatt's been following the story from Moscow.
I think everyone here, certainly at Mission Control, has been very, very impressed with him, with the way he's behaved, the way he's handled the whole thing. He did do 9 months training, though, beforehand, and I think it was very clear as well that NASA in America had also dropped its objections to the very concept of space tourists, because he was allowed to go wherever he wanted on the International Space Station. He became, I think it's clear from those pictures, very much one of the crew, as opposed to simply a tourist, a visitor on board. While up there he was doing a lot of scientific experiments, which he's brought back down and will send back to South Africa. And overall, as he landed, he said it had been a fantastic and exhilarating experience, and he said that every moment that he spent in space will be imprinted on his memory forever.
We're seeing pictures as we speak, Caroline, of the arrival of the shuttle crew back in Kazakhstan. If Mark Shuttleworth, the improbably named Mark Shuttleworth, was keen on space travel before he left, he's positively evangelical about it now.
Well, that's right. He said he would happily go straight back up there and do it all again. And his mother was telling journalists when they first arrived here in Moscow that Mark had been experimenting with making rocket fuel since he was about 5 years old. He used to do it in the kitchen and create rather large explosions. But no, he, I think himself, has been delighted with the huge interest this has generated in space. Not only has the money he's given, the $20 million, helped the Russians continue their space program, but it does seem to have captured the imaginations of people around the world, that someone, an ordinary person, admittedly an ordinary person with a lot of money, was actually able to go up there, make a contribution in space, and has come back safely down. And that's the message he wants to hand on. He wants to enthuse people for further space travel and more space exploration.
It just occurs to me, looking at these pictures as they come through, they haven't been up in space very long, but these very well-trained and presumably very fit cosmonauts are looking rather frail on their return to Earth.
Well, that's the thing. They have spent 10 days up in space in zero gravity. And even in that time, your muscles can start to waste away because you're not really having to use them. You could see them earlier in the week just floating around the space station effortlessly. And so when you come back down to Earth, you go through huge stresses. The capsule itself is traveling at something like 10 times the speed of sound. It's going through temperatures of 10,000 degrees centigrade, and then you come back down to Earth with a bump, and you can see they have to be helped off because they're simply not used to the weight of their bodies and to carrying that. So the first few days they'll have to take very gently indeed, but the doctors who've seen them have pronounced all the cosmonauts, Mark included, to be in good condition, but clearly they'll have to go through another few days of tests in Moscow before they get back to normal again.
Stolz auf das Erreichte ist mit Sicherheit auch der erste Afrikaner im All, Mark Shuttleworth. Er hat wieder festen Boden unter den Füßen. Und der gute Mann war so begeistert, dass er den Russen auch gleich noch die Kapsel abkaufte, mit der er gelandet war. Heute Morgen, kurz vor 6, geht die wohl teuerste Urlaubsreise der Geschichte glücklich zu Ende. Mark Shuttleworth, der erste Afrikaner im All, landet in der Steppe von Kasachstan. 20 Millionen Dollar war ihm die Reise wert und er lässt keinen Zweifel daran, dieser Spaß hat sich gelohnt. Peter Hantjes berichtet.
So sieht ein Mann aus, der sich einen Kindheitstraum erfüllt hat. Nach einer perfekten Landung kletterte Mark Shuttleworth unter großem Applaus gesund und überglücklich aus der Soyuz-Kapsel. Seine Träume auszuleben ist eine überwältigende Erfahrung. Und jede Sekunde im All wird sich für den Rest des Lebens in meiner Erinnerung festbrennen. Unter den ersten Gratulanten war auch Vater Shuttleworth. Er hatte es sich nicht nehmen lassen, bei der Landung seines Ältesten selbst dabei zu sein. Ich bin total stolz und froh, dass er wieder heil zurück ist. Der Rest der Familie hatte die Rückkehr zur Erde im russischen Kontrollzentrum verfolgt. Nach dem sauberen Touchdown Erleichterung bei der Mutter. Mir geht das ganz schön an die Nerven. So eine Erfahrung muss ich nicht zweimal machen. 8 Tage lang hatte der erste Astronaut auf der ISS nicht nur die schöne Aussicht auf die Erde genossen, sondern auch wissenschaftliche Experimente mit der Schwerkraft gemacht. Er habe bestens mit den Kollegen an Bord der Internationalen Raumstation zusammengearbeitet, lobte ihn die russische Raumfahrtbehörde. Beim Abschied gab es eine heftige Umarmung von der zurückbleibenden Stationsbesatzung. Dann kehrten er und seine 2 Kosmonautenkollegen mit der Soyuz-Kapsel zur Erde zurück. Als Andenken an sein Weltraumabenteuer hat Mark Shuttleworth den Russen die Kapsel und seinen Raumanzug abgekauft. Sie sollen schon bald in seiner Heimat Südafrika auf einer Wanderausstellung zu bewundern sein.
Der zweite Weltraumtourist Mark Shuttleworth ist wieder sicher auf der Erde. Nach 10 Tagen in der Raumstation ISS brachte eine Soyuz-Kapsel den Südafrikaner und seine beiden Astronautenkollegen wieder zur Erde. Shuttleworth hatte 22 Millionen Euro für seine Reise in die Schwerelosigkeit bezahlt und an Bord der Raumstation medizinische Experimente durchgeführt. Thorsten Berger mit Einzelheiten.
До свидания, auf Wiedersehen. Die 2 Astronauten und ihr Weltraumtourist verabschieden sich von der Dauerbesatzung der ISS. Nach 10 Tagen dockt ihre Soyuz-Kapsel planmäßig wieder von der Raumstation ab. Unten auf der Erde durchleben die Mutter und der Bruder von Mark Shuttleworth im Moskauer Kontrollzentrum nun bange Stunden. Der Vater ist sogar zur geplanten Landestelle nach Kasachstan geflogen. Um 5:52 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Ortszeit landet das Gefährt schließlich unsanft, aber sicher in der kasachischen Steppe. Ich bin so erleichtert, es war ein wunderbares Gefühl, plötzlich da oben am Himmel die Fallschirme zu entdecken. Und während die ersten Militärexperten auf die Kapsel zueilen, um die Astronauten zu befreien, macht sich auch im Kontrollzentrum in Moskau Erleichterung bereit. Dann endlich hat die Erde Mark Shuttleworth wieder. Nach 10 Tagen in der Schwerelosigkeit müssen ihm Soldaten helfen, aus der Kapsel zu kraxeln. Zur Begrüßung für die 3 Astronauten gibt es Gebäck und Ostereier. In Russland ist erst heute Ostern. Und natürlich gibt es eine Umarmung vom Vater. Ich habe mir einen Traum erfüllt. Jede Sekunde da oben wird für immer in meiner Erinnerung eingebrannt bleiben. Und damit der südafrikanische Jungmillionär seine Reise auch garantiert nicht vergisst, hat er der russischen Raumfahrtbehörde in Moskau nun offiziell die Kapsel abgekauft, die ihn sicher zur Erde zurückgebracht hat.